Well, happy Friday, Smite fans. You are watching Phase 1 playoffs for the Smite Challenger Circuit. My name is Dolson. Mifflin is with me.
Yep.
We've got a great weekend of action ahead. We've got plenty of games to go through today, and a lot of teams competing for a pretty decent prize pool. $30,000 for first place, by the way, in each of these regions. So EU gets $30K in first place, and NA also gets $30K in first place. Not too shabby, if I do say so myself. Here is the slate of matches we've got for you over in EU. Today, Elysium versus Snake Hunters will start us off. Pandemonium versus Accounting Department will be the second best of three. Now, it's important to remember you got upper bracket and lower bracket, so it's not all done if you lose today. You get a chance in the lower bracket to make a bit of a run, but Mifflin, between all these teams we have over here in EU, we expect some contested matchups.
We do. Maybe not in this first set. I might be a little bit of an Elysium fanboy over here. These guys have looked nigh unstoppable on the EU side of the bracket. But outside of that, Pandemonium up against Accounting Department has been a highly contested set throughout the year. And even though the Snake Hunters have been struggling a bit, I think that they're going to be able to bring something out here in the playoffs.
I think these are the four teams largely expected to make it through from EU. Elysium for sure, given that roster, and we'll talk on that one here in a little bit. Now you can kind of see what the path to the finals looks like for these teams, the upper and the lower bracket. And then a big matchup later on, depending on who wins these first couple. Elysium versus Pandemonium has been a popular matchup here in EU as well, so very important to look out maybe for that one in the upper semifinals, but definitely Pandemonium and Accounting Department look to have a close matchup later on here today. So long path in on there to the finals. Mifflin, you have these double chances to get on through. Does that change your mentality at all as a player? You get upper and lower bracket, or you wanting to win out all the way, no matter what?
I've got such a fragile mental myself, Dave. Every time I fall down a loser's bracket, I'd essentially just conceded, all right, so I'm a loser. It says so in the bracket.
That's right.
I'm probably not going to be able to move on too much further past that, so making sure you come in on the winning side is so important. You come in with such a huge advantage. It's great for morale. Yep. And no matter what anyone at home tells you, Smite is a momentum-based game.
And it is nice probably to have that extra layer of cushion. If we lose this set and we're in the upper bracket, we do get one more chance to move on. Also, I don't like having like losers finals in my thing, right? Just like literally the losers from earlier on. Look, this first matchup is one that might be seen as lopsided, and that's because the first seed coming out of EU is this Elysium team, a roster that is absolutely stacked top to bottom, headlined maybe by none other than Adapting.
Yeah, it almost feels like a threat when you read out their team, doesn't it? I mean, you got Terror Rim coming out of the Soul Lane, Adapt King, if you would. We might as well put the respect on his name. Angry, Spudio, and Trickstank holding up in the rear. These guys have tenure. I mean, there's no other way to word it. They've been playing Smite for an incredibly long time at some of the highest levels possible, and it shows in their gameplay. It shows in their standings. These guys are looking incredibly strong. And it's not that they're a one-note team. It's not that they really only can play through Adapting. They're not only looking for these late-game drafts. They're kind of playing it in the early. Sometimes they do wait it out a little bit longer. Sometimes Adapting doesn't feel like straight up winning the game on his own, and he just leaves it up to Angry or Spudio to do some stuff for him. This squad is a five-man threat.
And this Elysium team, they only lost 2 sets all phase long in phase number 1, a 2-1 loss to Pandemonium, and then literally the last game they played up against Just F6 was an 0-2 loss, so you imagine that there wasn't a whole lot on the line for this Elysium team there in that one. So a team that you expect to bring their best here to start off. They've got their eyes set on that serious prize money, and the motivation is absolutely there. Now, a team that has gone toe-to-toe with Elysium a couple of times is the Snake Hunters team, a team that absolutely, I think, deserves to be here in these SCC Phase 1 playoffs because throughout the phase, they showed improvement. It was a bit of a battle to get in here into the SCC playoffs. But Mifflin, this is a roster that definitely deserves to be here, but they've got a tall task up against this Elysium team.
They really do, but they've got the tools necessary to make that task doable. Kha'Zix out of the Soul Lane, Rapio out of the jungle, and then some big-name players like Pretty Prime coming out of mid. If you guys have been following Smite, you absolutely know what kind of storied career this guy has. Vaporish Coast has earned the moniker the Penta Kid because he just gets pentas. I don't understand how he does it. Every single year he finds at least one, and then I silenced out of support. This is a team I think is going to be very contingent on the early game. They need to make sure that Elysium doesn't hit the ground running.
Yeah, Vaporish Coast has been on an absolute tear, it feels like, for this Snake Hunters team. So suddenly this duo lane, I think, becomes very, very important and very, very interesting in this matchup. So somehow Vaporish Coast going up against Spudio might be one of the more contested matchups in this set.
Especially considering the meta as it is right now. Last week in the SPL playoffs, we got to hear from the pros saying, look, dual lane pressure, kind of the name of the game here in Season 8. And when you've got guys like Spudio, when you got guys like Trixtank, and when you also have Vaporish Coast over there, all of them are very willing to play that early game aggression style. So I think that it is going to be high contention there, but when there's that level of contention in one lane, it kind of tends to bring the jungler over too.
Yeah, and I wonder then, because we've seen a lot of hunters really contested in the pick and ban phase, so I wonder if in picks and bans for game number 1, which will be starting off relatively shortly here, we will start to see some of that emphasis put on, the Chiron pick has been pretty important in these matchups. And then there's kind of a flex over there on the other side. Do you imagine this weekend, Mifflin, Chiron still kind of stands at the forefront of this hunter meta, or we might see some interesting stuff?
I just can't imagine we see Chiron fall out of favor here with the Transcendence buff being so much cheaper now, with that standard Aussie build coming through. Chiron really does benefit from that itemization. But we do know, at least for Vaporish Coast, he has held on to that Heimdall mentality. Came into fruition towards the tail end of Season 7. Zapman really did like that pick, and Vaporish Coast has since then been running with it. So I wouldn't be overly surprised if we see the Snake Hunters kind of put a little priority there.
Well, he is going to get banned, Chiron is, and Heimdall as well.
Okay.
So we've referenced now about how well Vaporish Coast has been playing. You think Elysium agree with us there, Mifflin, the Heimdall and the Chiron ban. Ratatoskr off the table as well. That's going to leave Tiamat open. King Arthur is as well. That's been an interesting tug of war out of the solo lane. The Cullen, the King Arthur. Is it worth banning one? Is it worth banning the other? That's been such a popular matchup there in that lane. So one of them is banned out. The other is left open. King Arthur not looked at just yet, though. Instead, it's the Tiamat and the Athena myth when the first pick's locked in.
Tiamat in her own right is going to bring so much pressure to the map. I'm sure the fans at home remember when our boys, the Jade Dragons, straight up just lost to some minions. Well, Tiamat can do that against the best in the league, so I'm sure that they can absolutely do it at the SCC level. But I am really surprised to see this Osiris get locked in. It has phenomenal pressure, don't get me wrong, great backline disruption, really good at diving. But you highlighted it already, Dave. King Arthur has been the cream of the crop for so long. I'm just surprised to see Elysium let it go by the wayside.
Yeah, and Osiris locked in even before that there as well. Worth mentioning, we are getting word that Alka is playing ADC instead of Spudio for this Elysium team, at least here in game number 1. We'll have to check in and see what happens there in game 2 and if we get there, game 3. But at least here in game number 1, Alka will be playing ADC for this Elysium team. And Jingwei, a pick that maybe Mifflin, an ADC that needs a little time to warm up and mesh with the squad. You get something safe over there for this Elysium duo lane.
Great read, Dave. I think Jingwei fits in the meta insofar as she's going to be incredibly safe in lane. The exact same strategy you had back in Season 7 when Crit was a little bit more on the table. Now Tank Buster build starting to look like it's kind of the favorite amongst the hunters right now. But Jingwei certainly, if you've got a guy who's new to the squad, you have someone subbing in who hasn't really had that many opportunities to get reps in through scrims, Jingwei should be able to hold her own in lane. But you are essentially seeding pressure inside of the duo lane on the side of Elysium, because if you look at the Snake Hunters duo, Fafnir, Medusa, they're running it down.
Yeah, Medusa's seen a rise in popularity here as well. The wave clear early on, a little bit of that skirmish ability, especially with the Fafnir, has definitely felt good. Now, Raijin as well has seen this rise in popularity. The ability to just sit back, pour out some of that damage, I don't think can be understated here. So you got a Raijin up against Tiamat there in the mid lane, Mifflin. What does that matchup look like to you?
It looks like a lot of farming in the early game, but potentially we're going to give the early game advantage over towards the Raijin. The ability to use Thunderclap to close gap, as well as the setup for your jungler, is incredibly strong, and you're able to just kind of, if you are able to find that early kill, leverage it for further advantages throughout the jungle. Invade red buff, invade purple buff, and that is a good strategy for dealing with Tiamat. You know that she brings so much pressure to the late, you kind of want to shut her down a little bit earlier. Raijin's one of the best at doing it.
Yeah, excited to see what Raijin is able to bring here into game 1. Then a Nemesis will round out the draft now for Elysium. You know, aggressive, I think, in the eyes of the Osiris, the Athena as well. You want to get in there, taunt him in, and hope that this Raijin and the Jingwei can stay back and just pump out that damage from into the backline. So with that being said, Mifflin, do you think that this Snake Hunters draft has the ability to fight in to what Elysium are bringing to the table in game 1?
Individual matchups look pretty good for the Snake Hunters. Duo lane should be favored throughout the entirety of the laning phase. They should be able to run it down and potentially invade purples off their pressure. And then once you get into that late game, it's going to be up to this Camazotz to make sure that the Raijin isn't really able to be that menace that he normally is. I like this draft from the Snake Hunters. They've got great objective control. They've got decent confirm, not really the best confirm on the planet, but the steal potential from the Elysium squad, not as high either. But once this game gets into the late, man, between Athena and Raijin, it's a simple strategy. Confound, find one, drop them down to a quarter, maybe lower, and then just rinse, repeat.
Yeah, if Raijin is able to stay back, stay safe, this one could be quick for Elysium. The SCC playoffs starting right now. Elysium, Snake Hunters, Game 1.
Thanks, Dave. It's me here on the casting desk, Blazybard, joined by the wonderful Gormizer to bring you game number 1 between these two super awesome teams. Now, Gore, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but these two teams have been super competitive over the regular season.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to watch this. And the interesting thing is that, like, yes, Elysium, the team, you would expect them to be winning. They did win a lot of their sets, but Snake Hunters always pushed them to 3. They always gave them a little bit of trouble. Maybe not enough to really stress them out, but enough to really put a fork in their plans. And again, just elongate things. And you also have to factor in not only the fact that they've been close and competitive. I think it was, weeks 4, weeks 9 was when they had played. But Snake Hunters, as much as this is the first set, technically had to have a play-in for this. They had to play against the SOC team for this spot. And so this is actually not necessarily, quote-unquote, the first set that they've had to deal with. And that might give them at least a good advantage coming into game number 1, knowing that they've played competitively on this pitch.
For sure, it's kind of the difference between do you want to come in warmed up or do you want to come in fresh and not tired, getting all that energy into that first game. So we'll see which way the balance will shift. This time is adapting, already blinking into Rapio. The Thunder Crash comes down, Angry. Gonna pick up First Blood already, blinking, you'll miss it. Number 1 goes the way of Elysium, Angry. Taking a little poke on the way out there, but God, that's already one on the board.
And I actually really like that they get aggressive there. First off, you have Raijin. Play aggressive. You know Angry's going to be able to dish out a lot of damage, so I like that that not only does he play aggressive, he's the one who sets up that kill more than Adapting does. But also, I mean, look at, like, Pretty Prime, as great as a mid laner he is, he's Tiamat. That's not necessarily her strong suit, levels 1 to 2 to 3, 4, 5, really the early game in general. Same thing for Rapio. Camazotz can be very progressive early on, but nowhere near to the extent of some of the other junglers, so this is a really good 2v2 for Elysium to kind of take control of.
Absolutely. Already that First Blood boon is going to be pushed through with Elysium's superior farming so far. Gore already sitting, what is that, 900 gold in the lead already, 1.5 minutes in. That's pretty dicey here right at the start. Silence gonna get dashed onto, taking a little bit of poke. What kind of way do you see this duo going here, Gore?
Honestly, I'm curious about it myself. Like, Fafnir Medusa, like, once Medusa's online, which, let's say, give it about a minute, maybe 2, and she's going to be more than happy to take pretty much any fight. In fact, she's pretty strong as of now in this phase of the game, just because of the way her clear is going to be compared to what Jingwei is bringing. But you also have to look at Fafnir and his control, but then there's Athena on the other side. Normally, the Athena-Medusa combo is the one I'm talking about. But right now, I think this is where, like, Trix Tank is going to be set up. The problem is the follow-through. I don't know that Alka, even as a sub, like, Jingwei is great. Jingwei is not level 3, I'm going to kill you off of a taunt great.
For sure, yeah, you'd need someone like a Heim to actually silence going aggressive here. He's going to get a whole chunk of damage put in, but here comes Vaporage coming in with the trade. There's the poisonous spit. Alka gonna limp away with just about 1/10 of his HP. Rapio on the big loop around here, though. Probably can't find the ADC. He's already back to base, but Bubble Buff will be forfeit.
Good presence of mind to make that rotation, at least to get the experience and strip it away. And Vaporishko's showing off something about Medusa. I really love this. Like, I can't remember how long ago it was, but I did a video for the Smite channel about Medusa and, like, looking at her. And my favorite thing is mainly, it's very basic and simple, is that you can't body block her too. If you step in front of it, much like Strixlink did, it actually spreads the damage out further behind you. And that's where Alka, again, a little close, but my favorite intricacies with that, and hopefully we'll get to see it at some point, is that those play off of her statues as well. So any kills Medusa gets with her ult, forming those statues anywhere in the map, all of a sudden become a lot more deadly when you realize that that acid spray can spray off of them, and they become a little part of it. Granted, most players destroy the statues within 10 seconds of seeing them. Let's be honest, 2 seconds of seeing them. They see a statue. It's just like natural, like instinct to walk up and destroy it. Hopefully, there will be some interesting plays for Coast to make throughout this game.
I'll be honest with you, Go. I watched that video a while back, and before then, whenever there was like an interesting statue, like, you know, if you catch someone like a mid animation
they look cool,
pose,
right?
They do. I'm totally with you. I would leave them. I'm like, dude, you deserve it. That's a good statue. Let's keep that there. And then as soon as you pointed out that you could do that, I was like, well, damn it, Gore, you've ruined this for me. Now I have to destroy them, otherwise I'm putting myself at a disadvantage.
That's one of the, it's one of those like very small details that 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get to experience it, unfortunately. But when you do, oh, you know it feels good. And again, it's also one of those things like the difficulties of creating a statue, especially nowadays and competitive play. Like I think maybe 1, 2 over the last few weeks that we've seen Medusa that have formed throughout all of the games she was played in. And that's the thing that I think is going to be kind of difficult for Coast, right? Most people have the good reflexes, are able to kind of flick away and dodge out the gaze so they don't get frozen, won't get killed by it most of the time. So they're really good at dodging out the damage and dealing with Medusa as a whole, and at least forcing her to be a little more creative with how she attacks.
Especially without like a decent setup like a taunt or even a pluck. I mean, the closest Vaporish is going to get to a good setup might be, what, from Cozy's ult? With the Stygian Torment, just bringing everyone towards him. But even then, they might not all be facing him. It's definitely not, as you said earlier, the Athena-Medusa combo where you're taunting everyone towards you. You know all eyes are going to be on you, and you just take off that mask. But yeah, as you said, definitely going to be difficult for Vaporish to get these ults out. Still going to be doing a lot of damage, though. Still a big AoE cone slow to impact these team fights, so...
I'm really excited to see. Now that Trixtank has joined over here, again, with Fafnir joining the fray, Coerce becomes a huge part of the conversation, the ability to just shred objectives, but admittedly also shred people. Trixtank's probably going to be feeling the brunt of that, especially early on. Those tank boots are nice, but they don't quite keep you alive as long as you would expect. But now you've got the Athena taunt mixed in with the Raijin, not only the dash, the mez that can come through, the damage that's going to be poured out by Angry, but also adapting slow and his ability to shred protections with his ult. I think Elysium's 3v3 is really strong, and if they choose to be aggressive, granted, it's been a relatively slow-paced game since that first blood, what, 2 minutes in, 1.5 minutes in? It has not... or they still have the potential, sorry, to be able to keep up that pressure and turn it into something big.
Ooh, Ulka just barely makes it up into the sky and away there. Decent effort from Vaporish to try and solo out the enemy hunter. But going back to what you were saying, Goy, yeah, it's terrifying, the 3v3 fight here. Although, I gotta say, I'm kind of scared for Silenced. If he tries to go up into that Draconic form, surely as soon as he pops into the Dragon, he's just gonna get hit by that Judgment from adapting and blown to smithereens, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine that they'd wait longer than necessary to get that kill.
Terrorim here in the right side jungle. Trixtank going to be using that ult to get over into this fight. Pretty Prime get hit by the ultimate from Nemesis, and now 3 people knocked up into the air by the Cerberus. 1 falls down, Rapio picks up 2, and now he's on the escape. Up, down goes Angry. Able to claim credit for that kill is Terrorim. Now trying to fear everyone away is the big monkey man with the drum. Silence. Trying to come up towards the Raijin now, but the Raiju proc is going to be good. The slow's going to be on point. Beads forced from Angry. He's going to jump out. 2-for-1 trade on the right-hand side.
I think, I will say, I speak for myself, guaranteed, but also maybe Elysium here. That didn't go how I expected it to. There were a lot of really good plays to start that for Elysium, but the follow-through is where things really started to fall apart. I think Pretty Prime got to have a good portion of that fight, but realistically, I expected a lot. Yes, Terram's still able to get a kill. In fact, I was actually looking at his items earlier, but he's got that physical pin that's going to be coming off of the Warrior's Axe, plus the power from the Rangda's Tier 2, the Fighter's Mask that he's got locked in. Like, he's got a good amount of what I would think is early game fight potential, especially for going up against a Guardian. But we didn't get to see it as much there as I thought he was going to be heavy. Plus, adapting got melted a lot faster than I think he anticipated. Same thing there for Trix. So maybe that's going to be a moment to pump the gas, or sorry, pump the brakes a little bit if you're Elysium, because you're recognizing that, you know what? Maybe we're not going to be as formidable as we need. Maybe we want to, you know, at least one tank item, at least some Thebes, get some health online for Trickstank, something going before we take another big fight like that.
And I think a lot of that's off the back of Cozy finishing up those purple boots. I think he had them going into that fight, but hits 3 people with the ultimate straight into the spit, melts about half their combined health bar, and then it's such an easy pickup for the rest of the team.
I think that's one of the one of my favorite things about Cerberus. In fact, I'd say one of the reasons we've been seeing people like PBM pick him up and play him in the support role is because he can be really aggressive. Like, he can still hold his own and fight. He's maybe not going to be the end-all be-all warrior that you expect, but frontline-wise, especially when you add in, like you said, his ult and the damage, he is one of the deadliest gods to have up there. And Kha'Zix has been one of the best solo laners I think we've seen in Europe. Like, fighting with Tarim, he's had a lot of great performances. In fact, some of the wins Snake Hunters have had were because he played really well to keep them in it. And so I expect him to be essential to a victory here.
For sure. He's kind of like a Ducky or a Benji on this roster, where a lot of their play comes from him. He's kind of a driving force behind this team, for sure. And it might come into play in this fight here as Silence might get isolated here on the left-hand side. Kha'Zix just trying to walk in. Rapio gets taunted, and Tarim's just going to hit him a couple times, and now it's Tarim in a little bit of trouble. Not as much escape potential, but here comes Defender of Olympus coming down. Doesn't look like Snake Hunters really want to take this fight, though. That is overall going to be Trickstank's ultimate for nothing.
And you can see Coast. This matchup, if it's Coast versus Spudio, I have no clue how it's going. But Alka right now is not necessarily lost any of the matchups, but that's the second, third time now that I've seen him have to back to base, and that they haven't been able to hold their own as much against Coast. And yeah, Coast is dropping his ult for it every time, but I mean, he's absolutely controlling this lane. Coast can drop his ult as much as he wants because he has no worries over there. And I think that's going to be a big factor when these join up. Like you said, 2-level difference. That Medusa's going to be coming in powerful to some of these Fury fights.
Why don't you think we see Adapting or even Angry and Trickstank making this rotation onto the left-hand side?
Now, Angry and Trickstank, I think, could. Now, the problem comes to locking down the Medusa, which, I mean, you've got Athena dash taunt. Theoretically, you should be able to close the gap pretty well and keep up. But I think the main problem is that they're playing, admittedly, like, when you have a sub, you're not playing through the sub, right? Like, if Alka falls behind, screw Alka, we're going to Angry, right? We want Angry to be as far ahead as possible. Angry has that 1-level lead, but it's coming at the deficit of somewhere else on the map. And I don't know that Adapting is going to be able to find the gank that you want. Even as a Nemesis, yeah, you're great, but I don't know if he's going to be able to find the kill all on his lonesome. They just want Alka to farm up and hang out. And he hasn't died so far, so just let Jingwei be Jingwei.
Fair enough. Rapid Reincarnation going to allow her to come back into the lane a little earlier than pretty much any other ADC. But speaking of the Devil Gore, we were talking about ganks on the left-hand side. Sure as hell, I silenced Rapio, Adapting, and Trickstank showing presence over towards the purple buff. Snake Hunters looking to try and invade it. Alka kind of separated here in the lane, but fighting them 2v1 so far is I Silence. Gonna get taunted back in. Was that a Sunder? Yes, it was. Bye-bye Silence. Fafnir falls down. Rapio could be in some trouble here as well. Thunder Crash in from Angry.
Oh, wow.
Blink forward. There's the ultimate from Adapting. Defender of Olympus gonna come through. There's the Paralyze from Vaporish. He's not gonna be quite dead yet. Dash forward from Adapting. Isn't quite going to find him, but eventually he will fall down. But health bars on Elysium are not looking healthy.
They're so low, but there's no way to get back there and do anything about it. I mean, Alka has been, at least every time we tend to drift over to a fight in the duo lane, just flirting perpetually with death. Adapting almost goes down there, as well as Trickstank, though, and that opens up a conversation for Snake Hunters to potentially open that door. But I think it's even funnier that right after I'm thinking, yeah, you know what, just leave this lane. Who cares? Just let it be. They go over there, and not only that, they lock down just enough of Vaporish Coast that they force him to dash in the opposite direction you ever want to dash, away from his own tower line, away from his team, nowhere where he's really able to go and feel safe. And so a really good collapse from Elysium on that duo lane to just really further their lead now. I mean, what, 1,600-ish gold? Like, they've been slowly but surely driving this one forward, and while there hasn't been as much blood, 6 kills, that shows the explosive force of their fights, the combo between an Athena and a Raijin, what Nemesis can do to really set everybody else up, even if Adapting's not going to be the quote-unquote hard carry for this team. I think that the jungle mid duo from the get-go has been insanely powerful, but now you're seeing when you add in Trixtank, you add in Alka, you eventually add in Terrarum, this is one of the most frightening, I think, combinations of a team that you could have.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly what Mifflin said on the desk earlier, is that late game puddle of Trixtank's taunt into Angry specifically, right, is just going to melt pretty much anyone come late game. But, Gore, let's not discount some of these players on Snake Hunters. I mean, Tiamat has potentially one of the best late game map controls in the game.
And we've seen a lot of people suffer. I mean, the quote-unquote best pro teams, right? The Dragons lost a game to Tiamat minions because it's just so difficult to figure out how you want to play around it. And that's something Elysium are going to have to figure out later on this game, assuming that Pretty Prime is going to put the pressure on them. Who's going back to clear those out? Are you going back to clear those out? The answer, depending on what, knocking down a tier 2 or a tier 1, maybe not necessary. Going for a tier 2, maybe necessary. They didn't get that. That hurts my soul.
Adapting goes for the last auto attack, thinks it's connected, and then walks out, and then he... Oh, that's devastating. Kozik's able to come in there and save the Pyromancer from the clutches of Elysium. No objective for them. That's gonna be a little bit upsetting. You okay, Cole?
That hurt. That it's just one of those things, Adapting, I can hear a lot of words he probably would have said after that, and none of them are good for broadcast, so I'm not going to try to repeat it or even think about what he'd be saying. But it's just, you're so close, you're right there. I mean, you're already in the lead, so it doesn't necessarily hurt that much, but now there's technically an opportunity for Snake Hunters to come in and scoop that up. And as much as I like to say it, Pyro's great because it's very low risk. If you lose it, it's not the end of the world. But it's also great because you're going to be able to get a big movement speed buff. I think you get more farm because of it, similar to Jingwei's passive, right? And now they're going to lose it.
Yeah. Oh, never mind. They don't lose it. In fact, Terrarum coming in with a Spirit Flail. Gonna pick that objective up. Rapio nearly loses his life, but a quick up into the sky should be fine for him. Kozix might not be able to say the same story. He should fall down here. Actually, scratch that so far. Escape the Cerberus. Bye-bye, Elysium. I'm not falling down today is what he's saying. Blinking forward is Adapting. Not able to quite find anyone. Kozix spots it out. And that is going to be pretty much a wipe for this fight. Nobody falls down, but Elysium, with a beautiful play from Terrarum, walk away with the Pyromancer after all.
Yeah, they get the Pyromancer that they should have had but didn't have a few seconds before that. So it feels better that they're still able to secure it. They don't necessarily lose it to Snake Hunters. That would have been a great objective for Snake Hunters, though. It would have evened out this game just a little more in their favor, made things a lot more equitable, at least in terms of the gold. Now Elysium, even though they don't win that fight, showcase how close they are, even with one person coming up for the steal and then a small collapse when Snake Hunters theoretically had the advantage at the beginning. They can turn a lot of damage around into nothing. Kha'Zix barely gets out with their life. Same thing, I think, Rapio Prime kind of pressured out there. So a fight around the Fury, especially with Terrarum kind of being quote-unquote late to the party, but how this Osiris jumps in is going to determine everything.
Absolutely. Silence sat 2 levels down as well from his counterpart. In fact, everybody at least 1 level down other than the ADC. Vaporish sat 2 levels pretty above Ulka at the moment, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for Ulka. He's still just kind of farming up. It's only about 17 minutes in. Gold Fury looks like it's the next POI on the map at the moment. Well, I was about to say just looking for a moment to try and go in for it, but it looks like these two teams are kind of giving it up, going back to farming.
Yeah, this is that weird dance. Typically, I'm used to seeing this around Fire Giants. It's Gold Furies that where normally you'll commit to it depending on if you think you have better secure. But then you look at both of these teams and you go, nope, man, nobody's got enough secure to really feel confident trying to start this up. And so they have to wait for the fight.
Trix taking the worst half of that trade.
Wow.
Silenced, rather, taking the worst half of that trade. Trixtank looking pretty fine. In fact, he's level 14 at the moment, got most of that Gauntlet of Thieves online, building into what I can only assume is going to be a Shogun's Kusari there. trying to give his team a little bit extra attack speed. Gonna super synergize well with Terrorim adapting, and Ulka come late game. Fafnir might look for something in the similar vein, but not quite as many auto attackers on that side of the map.
I think the important part in that fight, so Silence just took a ton of damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was without Sunder. Oh, well, maybe it was Terram
no.
Sunder. Now, looking at the timer on that one, it might have been Terram Sunder. But Trixtank has his fully upgraded and just waiting for the next fight. And that's going to be the danger when you look at it, the blink beads that Kha'Zix has. Great for the synergy that Cerberus is going to bring in the ults. But 2 Sunders is going to make it a living hell for Silenced and Kha'Zix to be aggressive and be the ones jumping into it. Because right now, maybe you didn't get that kill, but Kha'Zix has to be, safe. Same thing for Silenced.
Silence is probably going to be in trouble here. Actually able to escape, no Sunder exposed. But what I was going to say, Gore, is what about in mid-season patch where that 2 Sunder becomes 4 Sunder?
Yeah, that's going to be crazy. I'm excited for that. There's a lot about mid-season that I'm really, really looking forward to. I'm wondering, so look at all of the items. Look at the builds right now. And then just imagine all of it being different in, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How long until that? That's the thing that I think is going to end up happening. First off, there's going to be no boots, right? So it's just going to be, it's going to be topsy-turvy. It's going to be relearning Smite for a few days, and that's going to be very hectic trying to cast, because I think it happens somewhere around Phase 2, and look, I'm just going to tell you, that's not going to be easy to do.
Gold Fury getting busted down here. There's the Belt Frenzy already used. Jumping in is the Osiris, but knocked up instantly. Gold Fury is unleashed, and Terran falling down low. Silence could be the first one to fall, but Pretty Prime's going to jump right on top of the Osiris. Bye-bye, Mummy Man. Trixtank could be the next one in danger, but he's going to be able to dash out for 3 there. 1 player down. Health bars looking pretty rough here on the left-hand side, though. Kha'Zix and Silence have to back up. Shouldn't really have too much more pressure on the Gold Fury. That's going to be all she wrote. Terram falls down. And, Gore, before we lose this train of thought, I'm still deeply upset that Tsukiyomi didn't get, a 1 damage buff to Caltrops, because nobody's going to be wearing shoes.
I can hear you just we gotta stay close. We gotta stay while we're right there. We gotta make sure it happens. I'm impressed, though, that Snake Hunters, I feel like Elysium's team fight should be really good, but now they're the ones suffering. Terram goes down there. They don't necessarily have a big fight. They aren't able to fight back into the Fury there. And I think that's something that, once again, we're looking towards Pretty Prime right now, if I'm drifting anywhere. Coast, because the way he's coasted to level 20 and the way things have been going for him. But between him and Prime, it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of strain from the back line on the side of Snake Hunters. So Elysium are going to have to figure out how to get back there a little more reliably. Maybe that lack of blink there for Terram's going to be kind of coming back to bite him.
Yeah, it's weird, right? You would think Elysium have some pretty decent dive between Nemesis and Osiris, but you're absolutely right. Just not able to find any sort of presence back there. We saw after the first attempted pull of the Gold Fury, it's only really Kha'Zix and Silence who'd taken any damage, at all. I'm pretty sure they're the only 2 players who had health missing.
Yeah, not really stressed out, right? If you're okay, well, hey, look, I took 1/3 of my HP, but also I'm a giant tank, and who cares? You're not really going to be too worried about it. Now that's what I'm worried about. If I'm looking at Elysium, yeah, you've got 2 upgraded Sunders. How are you going to get through them? I think that's going to be the big portion, is focusing their damage down. It hasn't felt like they've bursted any individual player enough yet to be able to really warrant where their Sunders are going. So I'd like to see the follow-up for it, but now you're starting to get things online. The Pestilence just came through for Kha'Zix, so even tankier alongside that breastplate. Plus, he already has the Tainted Steel, so they're really shutting down any amount of healing that you might be getting. Lifesteal be damned, it's all thrown to the wayside. That's going to end up making things, let's just say, rough for Elysium. Sustain in the middle of a fight isn't going to be going the way they'd like it to be.
For sure. It's this anti-heal mainly for Ulka and Adapting's benefit. Scratch that thought. Raptio in some trouble. Gonna be a slow bat here, but like a bat out of hell, he'll be gone before the rest of the team shows up. Elysium slinking back off into the jungle, looking to find something else. Potentially this Tier 1 tower on the right-hand side, just on its last legs. It looks like it's gonna be a mutual trade, actually, as the minions take the Tier 1 in solo at pretty much the same time. So there you go. A 500 gold trade either way, Gore.
and being able to keep it, again, about as even as you'd like. It's not even 1,000 gold. No, a little over 1,000 gold separating these two teams, but it's meant virtually nothing up to this point. And honestly, 23 minutes into the game, it kind of doesn't mean as much as you'd like it to. 1,700, it's a really good, big number, and it means very, very little, I think, in the grand scheme of 24 minutes now. As they start to push forward, they hit level 21st, but that's not mattered because everybody's started to catch up. I mean, you had mentioned it earlier, but Elysium had a 1 to 2 level lead in pretty much every role save for Coast's lead on Alka, and now they've all caught up, except for 1 level there for Kha'Zix, 1 level there for Silence, 2 levels now, as Trickstank just ticked over to 17. But as a support, like, that 17 matters. You're going to be able to get your starter upgrade. But that's about it. That's the other big difference. It's really all that Silence is going to be feeling here. So I think this is the best bet for Snake Hunters. And again, this goes back to the way these sets have gone between these two teams. It's always been 3 games, and it's always because Snake Hunters gives them way too much trouble in game number 1 that Elysium don't seem to be able to get the same grip on it that they do in games 2 and 3.
You only hit level 21, so forget who said that, but it's ever so true. In games like this, Elysium only able to hold on that lead for so much longer. And look over to the left-hand side, Gore. There are those giblets we were talking about at the start of the game. Pretty prime. Putting those serpent minions over on the left-hand side. Probably going to be pushing down that tier 1. Potentially a tier 2. Trickstank actually backs to look and clear those up. So they're going to be 1 man down in this fight. And the Fire Giant is looking pretty tasty right now, Gore.
I like that it's Trickstank, though. I was actually trying to think about it. Jingwei seems like a pretty easy choice to throw over there well. Like, just make Alka go do it for multiple reasons, but also Jingwei passive. You can get back into the fight pretty easily. The only thing that gets into the fight a lot easier than that is Defender of Olympus, right? It will drop you right there. And so I like the fact that they're separating the way they are. It feels good for Elysium because of the way that they should still be able to respond to a Fire Giant if it starts. And that's where, again, it comes to the secure. I actually, looking at it, I think Medusa might be the best quote-unquote secure that we have on an objective here. Like, good damage. Maybe Alka's ult could be thrown in there. Angry does decent, but again, bursts, I should even say, of percussive, explosive damage. Not enough in one go to really secure a big Fire Giant ult. So I'm looking at Coast as potentially being the playmaker here. I think this FG, with the pace of the game, 5 towers to 4, like, might not end it. There's probably going to be 2 in our future, depending on how the fight around it goes. But it's definitely one that I could see dictating who wins this game. Whoever wins it gets a massive advantage that they haven't really had at any point this game so far.
To make it or break it kind of Fire Giant. I completely agree with you. Trick's still here in the left-hand side, really pushing up this this lane. Trying to back here, but he's going to run into the last set of giblets. Oh, actually, no, it's not. Never mind, go. Look, there are stealthy lizards in the left-hand side now, and Trix is no longer in the lane, so they're going to be there working their way back up. On the right-hand side, though, back towards this Fire Giant. Pyro just spawned, who's right there to take it. I feel bad for the Pyromancer. It literally just revived itself, and it's already going back to the deepest pits of Erebus, probably. Silenced. Could be in a bit of trouble, but Terrum's the one to step up. Elysium able to claim back this ground.
Well, there's an aggressive taunt from Trickstank, but it's just trying to get the right grab, right? If you get silenced or Kha'Zix, I actually think this fight might end if you can kill off one or both, ideally, of the front lines. Snake Hunters are playing very safely and very, not even far behind. They're just waiting to react, waiting for Elysium to overstep because they're in a good part of the jungle. One misstep from Elysium, it's an easy collapse, a very difficult disengage for Elysium. And all of a sudden, you know, the jaws clench down, you can't get out, you have no escape from anything. Now they're just hanging around the Fire Giant itself. They've got a lot of wards around as well for Elysium, so they've got good vision to make sure things are still going on their way or on their side. That's going to be enough to at least give them a heads up when Snake Hunters come in.
And there it is, already about half health on the objective. Trickstank caught out by himself, but Elysium still on the Fire Giant. It's falling pretty low. Ulka's still here on it. Finally decides to back off. Meanwhile, Rapio up into the sky, doing a fair amount of damage to everyone, but the drums of war coming through. Vaporish nearly falls down. Terrum could be in a bit of trouble, but who's
That's
this
a good
around the
kill.
side? It's adapting, down falls Vaporish, and Rapio's going to pick up the ADC on the other side of the map. Kha'Zix and Silence, though, caught out against adapting. They're looking to that backline for Peel. Meanwhile, Pretty Prime all up by his lonesome up here on the top side. Rapio able to find a kill, but the jump forward from Pretty Prime is going to save his life. Tricks could fall down here as well. Chased down by 2 members with the dash. Should find him safe, and now with only Vaporish coast down, you might think Snake Hunters will be able to get this fire, but honestly, without Vaporish, I think they can't.
I mean, it'll be risky. They're going to start it up. They've got damage from Rapio, but they don't have as much as they'd like. Coerce is going to be able to get some healing, but this is the best steal territory you might be able to be in. In fact, you might not even go for the steal. You might just want kills.
Terrorim definitely looking like he could be in some trouble, but these two players are not really doing a great job of shredding through him, especially after he ults away. Lord of the Afterlife gonna find the solo laner safe. Meanwhile, Pretty Prime is still on the Fire Giant, or he has been for a little while. Half HP, Giblet's still ticking away at it, but I think this is just gonna be a reset for both teams here.
Yeah, Angry and Alka just respawned, now adapting, coming back into it. That was, I'm not going to mince words, a very bad fight from Elysium. Like, It just did not go the way they wanted to. When you lose Angry for Coast, I actually don't think that trade is as bad as it could be. I mean, yes, Angry is a big amount of damage, but Coast is kind of the team, or at least felt like the team, in terms of farm up to this point. But now I'm starting to look at Pretty Prime, and I'm starting to think maybe instead of having adapting loop all the way around, you need to have him get aggressive, stay aggressive onto someone like Prime. But Teammat's just so difficult to stick to and deal with. This Fire Giant's so difficult to confirm right now that I don't know that Elysium really want to take another fight with the way the last one went. In fact, they're actually in the gold deficit now.
Yeah, for sure. Snake Hunters really holding the, I want to almost say they're holding the objective pressure better, even though Elysium have the positioning here. It definitely feels like the Snake Hunters have the control. Elysium don't really have any space to try and go on to this objective, especially now we've just hit 30 minutes. That Fire Giant's going to be as tanky as it's going to get, cladding on that enhanced armor. So it's going to be an interesting play to see which one of these teams is going to want to commit to it first. What do you think, Gore? Is it going to be just try and rush it down? We're going to see a pick? What's the plan?
I think the idea right now is Trix Tank get in, get a taunt, get a kill, right? Like, the idea is let's see if we can burst someone down. The problem is that Snake Hunters, admittedly, they've just been adapting so well to these fights and to these taunts that, yeah, you get somebody, but they collapse so quickly in when you have someone isolated that the team fights haven't been going the way Elysium want them to. So they aren't going to be able to hold on, I think, as well. Like you said, it feels like they're controlling it even without actually controlling it. No, the positioning favors Elysium here. If they notice that Prime's back, that's a really good start for them, but looks like they're just going to be dropping down some minions over there, let them go push up that left lane. Adapting, using time wisely to at least get some towers, get some map pressure, get something going your way.
Yeah, Prime is going to have to leg it back over towards the right-hand side before Elysium notice those giblets in the left-hand lane, though. That's going to be the giveaway. That's going to be the giveaway. If they see the giblets in left, that's a time to fight. Pretty Prime's over there, but looks like the fight's pretty spread out here. You've got this whole line of Snake Hunters players facing the line of Elysium players in the jungle here. Not really wanting to move back over. Only one here with a protector as well is going to be adapting, so he's going to be pretty dangerous hanging out around these camps here.
One good loop from adapting honestly might be all it takes. I mean, with that kind of build, all he needs is a good kill in the back line. It's going to be Snake Hunters now getting aggressive.
Blinking forward is the Cerberus, and already Trix Tank taking a whole bunch of damage. Terrorim trying to do a little bit of his own and getting some damage. That's going to be exactly what he is doing. Rapio nearly falls down, but he's going to take to the sky. He's going to be just fine for now. Silenced could be in some danger. Health bars on both sides, looking a little roughed up. Rapio really the only one taking a chunk of change here on Snake Hunters. Meanwhile, it's Terrorim and Angry fall a little bit, not Angry, sorry, Trix Tank have a little bit of difficulty, but they're both going to back off to base. But now, with both the tanks gone, Snake Hunters might be able to just come on in and deal with this. There's no front line, but look at the wraparound from Adapting. He's holding off around the backside of this wall, but a ward there is going to reveal him. Trickstank is here, though. Two-man taunt. The front line is collapsing. Snake Hunters could be in a lot of trouble. Blink forward from Adapting is going to do a lot of damage. Pretty Prime jumping in now on top of him. Knockout's going to be good, and Adapting's going to get peeled away. So far, so good. The Snake Hunters able to counter out the wraparound from Adapting.
All right, now it's time for the relic check. And guess what? It's the mid laners right now that still have both their relics. Neither Angry or Pretty Prime getting pressured out throughout that fight. Everybody else feels the brunt of it, though. Elysium have a good collapse, but Snake Hunters have a great reply. I mean, this has just been the call and answer of genuinely the last 10 minutes. Like, I mean, they have not been able to get their feet planted if you're Elysium. Same thing for Snake Hunters. And this Fire Giant, again, with the low amount of secure in this game, is the biggest risk on the map right now. In fact, it's almost to the point where if you can afford it, which maybe Alka can, not a lot of other players can, maybe you back off and go for that Primal Fury over on the left-hand side, then rejoin the fight with your team. But even being gone for just a few seconds feels like it's going to be too big of an advantage for the other team to get aggressive and have a 5v4. So this is just, it's a very puzzling portion of the game to try and crack open because Snake Hunters can't afford a loss here. They only have 3 half-health-ish Tier 2 towers left. And that's not enough to really save the game for you. And while you could technically afford to lose it if you're Elysium, you really don't want to because Snake Hunters have been besting you in a lot of these fights. You lose this Fire Giant, I think that might just be a done deal for them.
Potentially, I think at this point, everyone's level 20 already. Vaporish is going to really mince through these towers, especially with the Coerce buff on him as well. So I'm with you here, Gore. I think whichever side picks up this EFG might just claim the game. And Silence looks like he could be in some trouble here. Already forced up into the Draconic form. Trickstank taking a little bit of damage as well, but so is Kha'Zix. The front line from Snake Hunters looking a little bit rougher than Elysium as a whole. They're going to back off for now. And Elysium, I mean, okay, I'm going to retract my previous statement, Gore, and say that if either team gets the FG without a fight, like, unless there's an FG and, like, 3 kills, I think maybe either team can hold on for sure.
Yeah, I think we're in a point where, like you said, unless there's a really big swing in their favor, I don't know that the Fire Giant's the end-all be-all that you would expect it to be or want it to be in a lot of these circumstances. It's also so interesting to see how these teams are approaching this. I mean, you get Silenced Ult, that's great, but now all of the relics are about to be back up. 20 seconds there for Alka's Aegis, same thing for Coasts. And then Sunders are the last thing that are going to be coming available for Trickstank and Silenced, both of them on around the same timer. And so you're not necessarily missing out on a whole ton coming into this fight, which makes it a lot more interesting to try and jump in. Once again, Elysium playing bait and trying to pull in somebody on Snake Hunters.
Already at about half HP. Fire Giant getting low, but the blink forward from Kha'Zix is going to stop that one out right now. Tricks looking for the loop around now. Angry already up into the ultimate. Alka falling low, but Defender of Olympus is going to save the life of Terrarim for now. Not that he was in any danger, only half HP on the Osiris. Pretty Prime now, the one taking damage, but jumping forward now is Arapio. Tricks could be in some danger. Angry actually the one caught out finally. Forced to use those beads. Raiju going to come forward. Tricks still in a little bit of trouble here. He's going to get chased around by the bull. Snake Hunters in a decent position. Rapid Reincarnation is bringing Alka back into the fight, but the Fire Giant has been started up by the Snake Hunters, looking to get back into it now. Our Elysium, Trickstank is going to be the first one looked at. He's going to fall down, but the ultimate from Nemesis is going to be good. Silence is going to take that kill down to the back. Vaporish is also going to fall to Alka. Adapting in the top side, though, could be in some trouble, just like Angry is going to fall to Pretty Prime. Terrarim, the next one to get looked at. Down he falls, and Alka's right next to him. Adapting, blinking forward, trying to find Arapio, but it's not going to matter. Down he falls. 3 men still left alive here from the Snake Hunters, but not the 3 that you would want. Ideally, no auto-attack based damage here. But this time around, Snake Hunters acknowledging they don't have that Fire Giant push, so they're going to go down this mid lane, and with 35 seconds on Tricks, that could be game.
I mean, with all of the minions that they have, it's definitely going to open up a Phoenix for them. Look, left-hand minions are knocking down a tier 2 as well. This is a massive swing. I mean, a Fire Giant level swing of gold going their favor. Now with the respawns coming through, I mean, they'd be cutting it really close, but they've got the minions, they've got the Phoenix, they're going to go for it.
This is it, Gore. I don't think that Elysium can defend.
Yeah, I don't think they respawn in time.
Yeah, the Titans melting quick enough. Tricksnake here on 4 seconds. He's not going to be able to charge up. The dash down falls. The Titan game 1 goes the way of Snake Hunters, and they are just one more game away from breaking their lose streak against Elysium and taking it home to the next round.
I mean, that just, look, it comes down to one simple thing, and it's just the team fights. Every time they met, they clash, and almost every single time Snake Hunters are coming out with a bigger advantage. Either whether it's relics, whether they collapse. I think the mid 3v3 was a really good core there for Elysium, but something about the way they meshed together in the 5v5 just didn't click. So maybe they need to change some things up in the picks and bans.
Well, Gore, we'll let the desk break it down for us exactly what happened, exactly what went wrong in that last game. But before then, we're going to have to throw you over to a quick break. So stay right where you are, ladies and gents. We'll be back for game 2 shortly.
Well, a bit of an upset here in game number 1. The Snake Hunters taking game 1 over Elysium. Now, this is something we knew this team, the Snake Hunters team, was capable of. They just weren't able to do it on a consistent basis throughout Phase 1, but when it matters in the playoffs, that's when you got to get it done. And the Snake Hunters 1 game away from knocking Elysium down into the loser's bracket. Mifflin, this is one that Elysium were in. It was back and forth, but really when it mattered, they fell short.
Yeah, for me, it just looked like early game aggression went the way of the Snake Hunters, so Elysium say, okay, fine, we have Athena, we have Nemesis, we have Raijin, we can wait it out a little bit longer. And then they did. They waited out until the 26, 27-minute mark, and that's where team fighting really started to hit their pace around the Fire Giant. And then interesting relic selections from the Soul Laner meant that Elysium really didn't have any great ways to close gap into the backline, whereas the Snake Hunters were closing gap into the backline relatively easily throughout that entire match. And then post 25 minutes, just about every single team fight went their way.
Man, Pretty Prime had a great game on this team, Matt. It felt like all the damage finding its mark throughout these team fights. And this Cerberus just consistently looking good for the Snake Hunters team. Cozy, on a consistent basis, I think we've seen this pick perform at a pretty high level. A 3-man Stygian Torment earlier on in this game set up a pretty good team fight early on. And then this fight around the FG is really where things come crumbling down. I don't want to put too much on one person, because I think that this is a game where, you know, everything, even just one little shift in that Hunter role might not have made the biggest difference in the world. But do you think it made a difference here in game 1?
It really did. I mean, 27 minutes into the game, Alco was sitting firmly at the bottom of the damage charts. You don't want to see that, especially on a crit Jingwei that late into a match around these elongated, neutral objective fights. They need to see a little bit more from their Hunter, but luckily for Elysium fans, I just got word in, it's going to be Spudio back for the Hunter role.
All right, so that's good for Elysium and Elysium fans, as you point out there, Mifflin, some consistency back in that duo lane. But I feel like this is what we've seen from this Elysium team throughout Phase 1 of the SCC, is they'll get into these matchups. It's a slow starter. It takes some time to get in there. I'm certainly not writing Snake Hunters off, because they've proven in Game 1 that they're a very good and a very capable team, and it's going to be a close matchup here in Game 2 and potentially Game 3 if Elysium take it. But this is kind of the Elysium way of doing things. Every once in a while, it takes a minute to get into these matchups.
Yeah, that sleeping giant type mentality where, oh, we're untouchable, then nobody can beat us. We don't need to bring 100%. But in recent weeks, Elysium has been stumbling a little bit, going down in a best-of-3 here. Has got to weigh heavily on their minds, coming off of recent weeks as well.
Yep.
They're on just a fat losing streak, man. That has got to weigh heavily on their mentalities. But they do have the John, if you would have, look, we had a sub. It doesn't super matter at this point. Now Spudio really has to step up.
Right, Elysium have the out after Game 1. Now it's time to say, all right, Spudio's back. This is the full 5-man roster. We've been winning consistently throughout Phase 1. It's time to do it when it really matters here in Game 1 of the Phase 1 playoffs for the Smite Challenger Circuit. Bans starting to roll through here yet again. Elysium, slight target out towards Vaporish Coast still with that Heimdall ban. Chiron taken off the table by Snake Hunters on the other side. Kilcullen will find the ban column. Team out as well, so there's going to have to be a different look in the mid lane for Pretty Prime. But Fafnir Ratatoskr, I think, jumps out to me here, Mifflin. An interesting ban priority that we've now seen in back-to-back games.
Just one of Rapio's favorite picks, man. He's so good on that god. He used to play the Thor. Now Rattataskr's kind of taken over that slot for him.
Where is Thor?
And it seems like Elysium has generally picked up that slack. But now they've left up so many good picks for the Snake Hunters. I mean, Yanis works his way through bans. Sobek has been a very consistent pick at the SCC level. There's a lot available to them. And somehow, some way, King Arthur's still going by the wayside.
Well, Soul was banned out by Elysium in game number 1, or maybe it was Snake Hunter. Soul was banned in game number 1, not banned here for game 2. And Snake Hunters will jump on that opportunity. So Sobek and Soul set up plus damage in the first 2 picks now for the Snake Hunters, answered back by a little bit of the same here for Elysium.
Yeah, we knew that Yanis was going to be a contentious pick right now, especially considering how consistently it's banned at the SPL level, the amount of mobility that it affords your team, as well as just great damage from a range. I'm talking full map, 50 cavalry, line it up, and just remove someone from a team fight come late game. And now with Terra Ultimate, the Earthern Fury matched up with it, someone gets ticked over, that one-shot potential goes through the roof now. I really like this draft from Elysium. But I could say the same about the Snake Hunters. That duo lane, Sobek, Medusa, that's spooky.
There's got to be then Soul, of course, out of the mid lane. Do you see much of a difference between Soul in the duo lane, traditional, match it up with a support, maybe you can hang out and farm a little bit longer, versus a power curve of a Soul maybe out of the mid lane.
Soul out of mid can get involved a lot earlier on than you might expect, especially considering back in Season 5, Season 6, when she was getting played relatively commonly. She was a late game hyper carry through and through. That was the whole plan, was get her to late, and then she's going to be able to burst people, maybe even drift a little bit towards that auto attack tree. But with itemization changes in Season 8, Soul really does hit her power spike the second she ticks over to level 5. That ultimate is such a consistent tool to set up for these kills. Her damage output is incredible, and with a little bit of a shadow buff, she can now essentially auto attack cancel with her second ability. Her burst damage is ridiculous.
Plenty of burst damage and plenty of setup still for the Snake Hunters. Snake Hunters will stick with the Cerberus here that we already know, presumably, and I don't think that's that big of a presumption out of the solo lane. Decent damage numbers as well as good setup with that Stygian Torment. So I think the Snake Hunters have gotten themselves a draft that they're pretty happy with throughout the first 4. Elysium answer back with a good draft of their own, some setup there as well, but also big burst damage. You talk about through space and time that connects, and then Set Jingwei able to find that backline. Very important here. So maybe taking advantage of the shell changes that we saw recently, Jingwei and Set to round out the draft here for Elysium.
It feels like to me Elysium has addressed the issues they had in Game 1, which was their inability to backline dive consistently, and instead of picking up more backline dive, maybe the ability to get in there in Game 2, instead they shift their strategy more so towards this counter engage. Set should be able to dive on his own, and if anyone puts himself out of position, he should be able to counter engage relatively easily. If Medusa ever uses her dash, she's going to be the target. Terra's one of the best counter engage gods in the game. Earth and Fury not only give you additional burst damage onto your enemies, but also a burst of healing onto your allies, as well as just great space control with the third ability. I think this Elysium draft has largely hedged up the issues they had.
Quick thoughts on Snake Hunters. What do you think the Snake Hunters team needs to do to get a win here in Game 2?
Hey, more of the same. No notes. Keep doing what you're doing, Snake Hunters. But as far as I'm concerned, they need to make sure that this Soul is able to get off to a hot start like we saw from Raijin in Game 1, but it's going to be harder to do. She doesn't have that same level of aggression.
Well, it's Soul. It's in her namesake to have a hot start, you'd think. Game number 2, Elysium and the Snake Hunters. Blazy Bard and Gormizer, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dave. I'm super excited to see what these two teams are going to pull out for us this time around. The Snake Hunters got a lot on their shoulders, Gore. As we said last game, every single set they've had against Elysium this season, they have pulled them to a Game 3. But they've always been the bridesmaids, never the bride. One game to find right here, right now.
And honestly, I think they set themselves up wonderfully to do it. I mean, look at that draft. Like, that is so clean. So much setup, so much fight potential. I think it's going to be a little more difficult for Coast overall because he's going to have to go up against Spudio this time as opposed to Alka, but it's still the Jingwei matchup, and it worked out pretty well for him in the previous game. The other thing to worry about here is going to be the Yanis. I actually think I'm looking at, like, Set, yeah, problematic. Same thing, Terra, problematic here. Angry's the one that I think I'm truly scared of. Yanis has been the god lately that has just absolutely been the make or break for some teams. I mean, some players have it permabanned against them, but in general, like, Yanis kind of jumped up in the Pro League at least to a #1 ban, something that almost always had to be taken care of. Everybody made him look deadly. And the way you play around a Yanis in your team can really change the pace of a fight.
Absolutely, and Angry definitely up there on a list of notable Giannis's for really using his kit. So I'm really stoked to see him play it right here. Up against Pretty Prime on the Soul, adapting, taking a decent chunk of his HP in the mid lane. Actually, a fair amount of it. Pretty Prime finds the autos that he needs and is gonna pick up first blood. Revenge for Game 1 onto adapting.
Now, if we want to follow the trend so far this weekend, granted it's only one game, but whoever got first blood then lost, we'll have to see if that can hold true.
Oh no.
Or Snake Hunters can bounce it back.
Already a Sunder there used on both support. Strix and Silenced are gonna take an extra little bit of damage there after being hit by those relics. Interesting pickups here. Gore is double upgraded Sunder, something that we were expecting to see in the solo lane.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they, like, I mean, going upgraded already for Silence, like, makes sense, right? Who are you trying to kill? Trix Tank. You know that it's going to be difficult to burn down Terra. You know it's going to be difficult to burn down someone with Terra's ult as well. So go ahead and get that upgrade. Plus, I mean, let's face it. Let's have the real talk. We'll get the conversation out of there. Shell's dead. I know, it hurts. Support players, I feel you. Mainly because that was my go-to. What do you do now? Frenzy? Nah, you don't want that early on. Horrific? Not a bad choice early on, but it feels like so far it has been the Sunder that wins out, and it's just opens up so much aggression. I mean, I'm looking towards Silenced right now. You get a pluck, you Sunder, they're dead. They might as well be, at least. So you should be able to find the follow-up for it. Same thing, Trick Tank, you get a stun, you Sunder, they should be dead. And so I think it just synergizes a lot better. You know, Horrific opens up some of that conversation. Frenzy's a great late game, but the Sunder start has really just been able to enable kind of the opposite of Shell. Shell was great because it slowed things down and could save you. Sunder's great because it sets you up for kills.
So violence is the answer as to
Violence
why
is
we're
the
seeing
answer.
these numbers. Right, okay, roger that. Meanwhile, while violence is happening in the left-hand side, Rapio is going to come on over to the left and pick up that purple buff in favor of the Snake Hunters. A cheeky little invade there, but across the pond, you've got the blue buff getting taken. Wait, hold on a minute. Did Kozak secure that? Okay.
I guess so.
That's it. That's a dub from Snake Hunters. They just won. As far as I'm concerned, that is a dub from the Snake Hunters. There's no need to play the rest of the game. That's it. Pack it up. Go home.
they win here. It's all over now. No chance for Elysium to come back. Actually, maybe looking like no chance. Tarum gets a little bit of pressure. And this is so nice. A change of pace from Snake Hunters. Like, I think they recognize that their draft is solid. And I like that they're getting aggressive and using it.
Absolutely, and Silence actually fails there to out-secure. The only Guardian on the map, not able to secure his own buff thus far in the game. Big upset for Silence there. He's going to get stunned down, adapting around the corner here. Silence is going to get sundered there, but the jump in from adapting is going to have too much follow-up. CC already burned from Trick's tank, and maybe a little bit too patient there from adapting. Could have probably come in and killed Silenced.
Yeah, I think was waiting for the pluck retreat to try and block him off once that came through, but then it didn't happen, and, well, then it didn't happen, and then it didn't happen, and then by the time it happens, well, he's at the tower line. Not much that you can do to follow it up on. I'm also interested to see Set for adapting here was maybe the biggest talking point I remember when we were looking at junglers. Obviously, I jumped to, like, your Bakasuras, your Kalis, your Mercuries when the Shell nerf happened, but Set was a big conversation because he was getting banned, he was getting played a lot prior to that. Would make sense that he fits along well with some of those other gods I had just mentioned, so maybe he should be picked up a lot more. He just disappeared after that change that came through. So now I'm wondering what adapting is going to be able to bring and what he's going to be able to pick up here. If he's going to be kind of showcasing strengths that Set still has, or if maybe he's going to showcase the opposite, and we'll see why Set hasn't necessarily been picked up. Also looks like he's going early on for a build to get aggressive. I want to see him fight.
Well, Vaporish could be in some trouble if a fight is what you wanted, Gore. A fight is definitely not what you're gonna get. It was over before it started. Vaporish takes a spill there on the left-hand side. They are able to pick up the purple buff, but I'm not sure that's quite worth the life of the Hunter. Vaporish gonna be a little bit upset about that. Currently sat 0-1 as opposed to his opponent. Luckily, Spudio doesn't pick up that kill, so shouldn't fall too far behind in the left lane.
Yeah, I don't think he's too worried about it. Plus, they've been going separate builds. Last game, again, it was Alka, but going for the Devo Gauntlet as well as the Death Soul early on. Whereas it's been the Bluestone Transcendence pickup for Coast, and that fits better so far with the Medusa. Feels a lot better. Has been giving him some good damage. We'll just have to see if it can hold true. Because so far, I've been seeing Angry make a lot of plays with these portals. And we're only 6 minutes in. This isn't even like the peak of it. This isn't the grand showcase that a Giannis can have. So this is where things, I think, get a little fishy if you're Snake Hunters, and they're a little more difficult to try and control. Even if you are winning these fights, maybe getting a kill here.
Potentially, but the, I guess Rapio sees that Angry and Adapting are just walking out from around the corner. They don't want to commit onto Trix, and they end up backing off. Unfortunate, though. Trix Tank didn't have any mana in that situation. Silence was right around the corner. I think they could have probably committed to that kill, but it's at that point, does Adapting then come in and scoop up 2, maybe even 3?
Yeah, you have to be worried about that, right? Like, that feels like a surefire kill. But is it worth all-inning on to Trix Tank if Adapting's going to come through and play cleanup crew? Not at all. You have to make sure that you're safe. Again, at this point, you have beads for Soul. That was the only relic that was available. Well, I guess Sunder technically there for silence as well. But like nobody else with the safety for a disengage. If Adapting gets on them, they're on them. So I think it's a good play from Snake Hunters. Admittedly, while it feels like a dropped kill, but still to play it safe, keep it slowed down. This is very similar to what happened in game number 1, though, and that's a little worrisome for Elysium if I'm looking towards the way the late game went, where things were popping off for the first, like, 2-3 minutes, and then they hit the farm fest, they slowed down, they try to figure out where to engage, how they want to engage, who exactly the prime target is in a lot of these engagements as well. And then it just resulted in nothing really happening until, what, 18 minutes-ish is when it feels like it started to pop off again. And by then, we start looking at Pyromancers, you know, Furies are on the conversation. We're looking towards Fire Giants a few minutes later. And Snake Hunters have a really good draft for some late-game fights. So I actually want to see Elysium maybe try to pick up the pace, drive this one home for themselves.
Potentially, but Gore, aren't their picks more suited for the late game anyway? Like, why would they really want to be pushing for early games? Yeah, like... I'm totally with you, though. Like, for sure, Set can do so much damage in the early. Same with Giannis. But I'm kind of also worried that... Because we saw that kind of play from Elysium around the Gold Fury earlier on. Actually, around about this time, Prime showcases exactly what I was talking about Giannis damage. But around about this time, Elysium did take a fight or two. They took 3, potentially. And all of them were just really messy because their characters weren't quite online yet. And maybe they were a little bit worried about that.
Maybe it is the time to just chill then for both. Well, I say that, and of course they immediately get aggressive.
Drake's tank is going to be dead in the water. Silence is going to get hit by the ultimate from Giannis, though. He could be in a lot of trouble. Is able to avoid the shotgun. But the damage from Spudio is going to be good. Adapting, able to pick up pretty prime as well. And with the through space of time portals, they're going to be able to clean up the red buff on top of that. Adapting, still potentially looking for more. Vaporish under the tower here. No ultimate available to him. He's going to have to play safe. Meanwhile, there is an angry man in his jungle clearing up his back camps.
I mean, Adapting just getting maybe some of the freest farm of his life right there. Strips a lot away from Snake Hunters. Off the back of a good fight, they didn't even necessarily want that. I don't think Elysium were trying to engage as much as Snake Hunters were. Ultimately, Elysium really using it. That's a good thing about the Serket, the Sobek, the Cerberus. It gives you a million different ways to engage, or at least it feels like it. And they don't quite have the same potential on Elysium, but what Elysium apparently have is a really, really good counterpunch, and that is something you're going to have to be worried about early on. And, I mean, you had highlighted, I didn't even think about it, but late game, all 5 of Elysium's gods just scale so well. They feel so great at level 20 and in those late game 25-minute team fights. And while I think Snake Hunters have a really good group, I think on an individual basis, Elysium are coming out on top here, and that's going to make things a lot more complicated for late game Matt.
Vaporish in a lot of trouble on the left-hand side.
Spudio.
Both Hunters nearly 1 HP. Spudio, I think, panics a little bit there. He's a little worried that Vaporish will turn around and do a little bit of extra damage. Ults away, but Vaporish doesn't back early enough. He's going to get caught out. Can he spot out Trix? I think he's definitely dead here. Uses the ult to try and get away. Trix Tank still looking for something. The dash is going to find the pop, but the dash should find Vaporish. Not quite with the damage, but Trix Tank will turn around and punch a snake in the face. Is what just happened, Bill?
I don't know if you know this, but if you are a snake, I'm sure you've experienced this, but being punched with a rock fist hurts.
Oh.
That's true. Science fact right there.
That's what study is that from? Is that peer-reviewed?
You know, it's one of them.
I mean, if it's not peer-reviewed, go. I'm sorry. I'm not really sure.
I'm sure some peers could review it. Look,
that.
review it. It seemed pretty good, right? That seems to make sense.
Well, someone needs to peer review I silenced his health bar because I don't think it's all there anymore. He's going to take a trip. Angry could be in some trouble here, but the rest of the team's still hiding around the corner. He's going to be just fine. Not able to find the crocodile, but Elysium, so far, so good. They found another couple picks. They're sitting just under $1,000 ahead here at 12 minutes. Go. What's the next play for Elysium to keep it going?
I want a Gold Fury. That's, I think, the next big chopping. I think you put it perfectly in the last game. It's the next big POI, right? With Pyromancer down, not a whole lot to really look forward to. You're going to be farming up naturally, like you said, just a little bit ahead, not even enough to feel confident. And I think your capabilities, but you have better secure. I think you showcased right now that your team fight, at least your ability to pick apart Snake Hunters, is better. I want to see you start up a fight and either force Snake Hunters to take a bad fight around a Fury, or you get it. And I think a lot of that's going to be on Spudio. Might want to wait for one more item before this ends up happening, just because I'm realizing like Devo's stacked, but maybe wants to get that Executioner online before they really start to pick it up. But Angry adapting everybody over here. You have the pressure at least to find something. It's just getting it all to work and finding that perfect opening, which is never going to happen. But that small window, that's really what Elysium are waiting for.
We can also touch on the change-up in the ADC lane really making a difference this time. Actually, hold up a sec. Pretty Prime could be in some trouble here. There's a fair amount of damage from the skewer, but the switch up from Spudio to Vaporish, from Ulka to Spudio, sorry, has completely changed the dynamic of the duo lane with, this time last game, Vaporish being just under 3 levels ahead, and this time around it's Spudio with a 2-level lead.
And it just feels better. Honestly, I think he'd be about 3 levels ahead if he had gone for that 1v1 and hadn't panicked ulted and instead stood his ground. I think he would have had it. But, you know, hindsight's 2020, and honestly, there's also no guarantee that it would have happened that way. So I think it works out well. 1-0-2 versus 1-2-0. I mean, more pressure's been put on Coast this time around. And I'll say this, like, Prime is a great mid laner, but when it comes to the way Snake Hunters have played pretty much all year, I feel like it's Kha'Zix and Coast that are really the ones that kind of push things forward. I think Prime, again, kind of a late, I think, addition to this team, but also Rapio, like, they aren't really the centers of attention most games. They're really good setup, they're really good damage, they're really good. I don't want to call them noise for the rest of the team, but they really are the facilitators, not necessarily the carries, whereas Coast, Kha'Zix are the ones that typically get to shine a little brighter here. Silence, I think, has had quite a few highlights in their time as well, but admittedly, you're looking towards Coast as the, I guess, the most recognizable carry for the team. Anybody has the potential to do it on Snake Hunters, but Coast is the one that steps up and does it a little more regularly than everyone else. And when he's behind,
and like,
makes things a little more awkward.
Sure, I'm not really sure if that's like a bad thing though, right? Like Snake Hunters just have a different way of playing. I mean, as a long-term Aquila, Titan, Obey, HFM fan, you know, I'm just defending my boy Pretty Prime for a second here. He's never really been the huge, like, I'm going to carry the game, but as like facilitator mid laners go, I think he's one of the best. And he can definitely pop off in these engagements and find his way there. Prime, moment sitting just a level below Angry, though, which is a little unfortunate. But the fact that he's up against a Giannis makes it not so surprising, right?
Yeah, there's not a whole ton you can do here. Even with the soul, like, strengths that she has, Giannis is Giannis, and that's really where it is the end-all be-all.
Well, able to find himself into the unstable form. Prime able to limp away with his life, surviving 2 ultimates there. One from Tarim. Oh, Tarim and Trix might get caught out here. Bump their faces into a wall. Both gonna get pulled back. Trix tank taking a whole lot of trouble, but a little bit of a miscommunication there. Silence is gonna throw Trix away. Wow. Prime in some trouble now once again. Silence is gonna fall down. I'm not sure Soul's gonna make it out of this one. Actually, the turnaround, Vaporish makes it into the fight. Spudio finally gonna put Prime in the ground, but Vaporish able to peel away, adapting in time. Down falls the jungler. Vaporish now looking for a little bit more damage, potentially onto Spudio, but he's gonna spot him out. Kha'Zix is on the way, though, looking for potentially a stun. Blinking forward is Rapio, maybe not expecting Angry to be there. He's going to get right out of dodge straight away. Stun from Kha'Zix should end out the fight there.
And this should be a Fury. I mean, I can't think of many reasons not to do it if you're Elysium. You've got the numbers advantage, you've got the health bar advantage, and admittedly, I feel like you have the damage advantage, but it looks like they're just going to back off. I mean, it's a safe play, but I still don't know that I like being this safe. I mean, that could have been a much more massive lead, massive swing for you outside of just a fight going your way. Maybe it's, again, safe play, keep things going your way. And that showcases, I mean, that was what, the magical equivalent of a door shutting in your face where you're trying to walk through the portal and it disappears right as you get there. But such a good turnaround. I mean, yes, you end up losing adapting, but at the end of the day, that should have been a much bigger fight for Snake Hunters, and the fact that Elysium come out on top is huge for them. And again, I think they could have pressed it to get a little further ahead, but still, winning fights like that when you shouldn't be winning them, that's exactly why this team has been #1 in Europe.
For sure. I feel kind of bad to say it, Gore, but how much of that fight do we blame on Silenced, pulling Tricks out of Prime's ultimate, kind of sacking that kill for them, and then the rest kind of happened as it is? I mean, it happens, right? The miscommunications, but at this level, can you really afford to be making mistakes like that?
But not against a team like Elysium, right? I mean, that's the perfect example. One small mistake that otherwise would have still resulted in a kill results in your team losing a huge fight. Granted, you didn't lose the Fury, which is maybe the grand scheme, big picture, but I don't know if they have enough security.
Potentially. There's the ultimate. Elysium are able to pick it up on the backside. Once again, an objective stolen away by the red team here. And now, Snake Hunters in a lot of trouble. They Porish. Probably going to fall down here, but a beautiful knock up there from Kha'Zix. He's going to keep him alive for now. Not long enough, though. Angry, going to put him in the ground. Spudio picks up a kill onto Ice Silence. The 2-for-1 trade with the Gold Fury in hand, but Terim in some trouble here. Prime still level 14, Gore. He's really far behind of Angry, not quite able to find the farm that he needs or the damage.
3-level difference. I mean, Angry, in the 1v1, Angry is going to win that, but let alone trying to take it in 2v2. I mean, Pretty Prime, now checking over. It's going to be difficult at this rate to feel comfortable as a soul, and he's gone for the Typhon's Fang. Like, he's going for a heavy damage build, lifesteal build, but is it enough right now? You need the levels, you need the experience. I actually like this call. Go for the Pyromancer. Try to get some experience into your favor just to try and balance things out.
It's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen again. Gore, never mind. It was a countercaster's curse, right? I said that they weren't gonna steal it, or I said that they were gonna steal it, so that they didn't steal it, huh? Big brain plays, Prime, and the Snake Hunters able to secure away the Pyro.
Using your curse powers for good. Make sure Snake Hunters stay in it instead of fall behind too much. I think if a Pyromancer, like, if that gets scooped up by Elysium, again, it's not the end-all be-all, but that's a real feels bad moment, right? Like, if they are able to walk in and take that, you just start to question whether or not you can accomplish that much, because that gold lead, especially with the Fury going their way, just really jumps up in favor of Elysium now. And we're 20 minutes in. Like, this is a tangible, you will feel it gold lead. Crit online for Spudio, has that Wind Demon already, so synergizes well with the kit in general, but also feels really good for Spudio in these fights where he's already been such a difference maker. And look, I'm not going to talk bad about Alka. I think Alka played very well in game #1, but you can really see the difference in why Spudio is like the best right now in the SCC when it comes to the Hunters, because of the way he's been playing and the difference that Jingwei had from game 1 to game 2. I think this is something that we're going to continue seeing throughout this game.
For sure. You can tell the level of confidence here as well, right? From Spudio to Alka, you can see how much more faith Spudio has at this level, how much more experience he has playing against these players. Vaporish not really able to pull the same kind of shenanigans against this player, so going to be a little bit more difficult for him. Now sat roughly 3k behind our Snake Hunters. Fire Giant is the only objective left on the map here, Gore. Do you think maybe we'll see the next fight from Elysium spark over this, or do you think we'll wait for the next Fury?
Man, that's such a weird balancing point for them. 21 minutes in, I think they have the damage and secure to be able to take a Fire Giant, but with the way they've been playing, I don't know that they want to push for it, right? Like, I think, absolutely, fight over the FG and make sure it happens your way, but Oni Fury's a couple of minutes away. Things haven't necessarily been, let's call them, aggressive on the side of Elysium. It's been calculated, is the way I would describe it. And there's no reason to risk a Fire Giant if you don't have to, so I think they're in a good spot to just continue pushing forward. An Oni wave as well. They just knocked down that Tier 1 in left, but Tier 1 in mid, Tier 1 in right, low. One Oni wave would really be able to clear out a lot of these towers, give them even more pressure for a Fire Giant. So maybe it's just the pace of the game, but I feel like there's more likely an Oni Fury in our future before the Fire Giant.
Thank you for your candor there, Prime. In a lot of trouble, able to find that incorporeal form yet again, just barely. But how is he expected to farm under these conditions? But Gore, I'm gonna call your bluff. You were wrong. Fire Giant was a coin flip. You clearly landed on tails there. FG already falling super low. Elysium might get this uncontested, and they're gonna do just that. Snake Hunter's too slow on the uptake. Silenced could be in some trouble here. Prime caught out by himself on the left-hand side, but Elysium don't look like they really want to take the fight after the fact. They're gonna be happy with just walking away with FG around their waists. Snake Hunters drop the ball there, and they're gonna drop a lot more before the siege is over.
Yeah, I didn't think they'd be able to get it that cleanly, and that's why I was thinking they wouldn't try to risk it, because I thought it was going to be a little more difficult for them. But like you said, Snake Hunters just kind of didn't do anything is the best way to describe it. Like, they just kind of hung out. They did get a little aggressive, tried to fight, but by the time they got aggressive, it was way too late, and that Fire Giant was incredibly low already. And this is the weird one, where in Game 2, that's the first Fire Giant, right? Because, yes, the last game, nobody was able to secure it. Nobody could really keep it going their way, and finally, when the fight happened, it was without the Fire Giant falling down. So this will be the first big power play for one of these teams to pick up. And I don't think you need a lot of kills in your favor. It's just all about map control. If you knock down a tier 2 or 2, all of a sudden things are perfectly in your capable hands.
Huge ultimate from Trix Tank, that blinking forward hits everybody with the Earth's Blessing. Down pulls the tier 2, and Elysium looking to continue pushing this pressure. Kha'Zix is the target for Terram's ultimate there. Looks like the ult from Prime is going to be enough of a deterrent, but what a clean ult. I'm pretty sure Trix hits every single man of the red team there.
Yeah, I mean, being able to find as much that you want from Trix Tank, like, this Terra has been very kind to him, and he was one of the ones locking her in before we even saw her. I don't even want to call her meta, because I still don't know that she actually is. It's just that Trix Tank likes to play her, and I think a few other supports have been picking her up in some odd spots. That's something dangerous to deal with. Does still have that Sunder as well.
Blinking forward is Kha'Zix, looks to find some sort of a play that Trix Tank just had, and, well, Trix falls pretty low, but it's not going to be enough to secure the kill. Meanwhile, the rest of Snake Hunters still have to limp away, give up the tier 2 tower defense, and that's going to be one more pawn off the board for the Snake Hunters, and Elysium move one step closer to this checkmate that they've been piling up.
It's this gold lead now that's starting to really mount up. 8,000 gold, that is so hard to overcome. And I will say there's a lot of gold on the map for Snake Hunters. That's where Elysium have gotten most of their lead. And once this Fury goes down, it's going to be even more in their favor. And while you have enough to pseudo-equal things out, almost enough in terms of towers that Snake Hunters could try to turn it around, there's a lot of work to be done before you can nab 6 towers, especially in one go. I mean, no Fire Giant on your belt if you're Snake Hunters. Means that you're going to be playing the long con here. The good news is, at the end of the day, they did not lose a Phoenix. They might even lose one more tier 2, but the Phoenix so far has been out of the question. A little under a minute left. If Elysium play this fast, they will be able to get some pressure out onto it. That should be enough time for Snake Hunters to at least stall them out, burn the FG, and force Elysium to decide if they want to go for a Phoenix without the buff, or if they're just going to let it live.
Going to be a rough one for Snake Hunters to defend from. 1.5 minutes still left on this Fire Giant play. Now moving back over towards the left-hand side, Rapio is going to be the last member of the team to join them. Got to try and defend on 2 ends here against both waves with that Oni buff. Elysium, though, choosing to give up the siege and move back here. Gore?
It's all about that timer. 10 seconds left. It's just, do you want to fight? Not really. We'll fight around the FG where we know we can be a little more controlling, I guess is the best way to describe it. They've got a minute left now for the respawn to come through, and I think that's where, again, a lot of their prowess is going to be in the control of the pit and the control of the map, the way they've been doing so far. Plus, I mean, let's face it, what was that? 10,000 gold swing all of a sudden in their favor? Like, I mean, it was borderline even prior to that. So now, that's a lot of items to go and purchase, and they are going to be able to purchase quite a bit with what they just backed with. That's going to make this fight, this next one, theoretically even easier for them. Although I will give Snake Hunters credit. They had a lot of level deficits. Now they've caught up. Still 3-level difference between Silence and Trix Tank. So you're not really happy about that. But with a double hunter, the Medusa Soul kind of being counted as the hunter there, you get one Fire Giant. Objectives go by really quickly. They do need to be careful with their timing, though. They might actually try to crack the base and just give up the FG altogether.
Potentially looking to pick up this tier 2 here on the left-hand side, adapting all by his lonesome. Rapio's going to be off the mark with the kiss. Tier 2's going to fall down. Prime in a bit of an odd position here. Already used the incorporeal form to try and get a little bit of movement speed away. I think he's just looking to back here. He's going to get it off, Gore. Prime is safe and sound. 2 towers under his belt. The rest of Snake Hunters might not be able to say the same, especially when the ultimate from Angry rips through 2 health bars. Rapio and Coast fall down to half. Silence in some trouble, but is able to dash away. He'll be just fine. Elysium unable to punish the Snake Hunters for their transgressions.
Man, after such a great ult from Angry, that's unfortunate for them. Again, just kind of slows it down, but good news is Fire Giant's available. Bad news is that, well, Snake Hunters are going to be walking into it, but they recognize this, and Elysium are setting up a trap.
Oh no. Elysium hanging on the left-hand side here. Snake Hunters haven't recognized the flank. Nobody knows, but a miss from Trix Tank is going to give the game away. But now everyone's already here. Pretty Prime already escaped up onto the top-hand side, but Porus is going to be the first one to fall. Spudio claims credit for that kill. 4 members left standing on the Snake Hunters. This could be all or nothing. Rapio falls low. Pretty Prime, no ultimate available to him. He's going to be nice and slow thanks to Terrorim. The 2 from Giannis is going to put him down a lot of HP. Luckily, the rest of the Snake Hunters are able to run away. It's just going to be Kha'Zix and Vaporish falling down here. FG should be on the table here for Elysium, but luckily, no game just yet.
I mean, this is one of those moments, this Fire Giant going the way it is, good kills like that. Snake Hunters just did not recognize it. Look, there was a flashback. I think NRG made a play like that once upon a time. That's kind of one of those moments now where you have to be worried about it. I think adapting reads the situation. The whole team reads that one beautifully. Now they're going to be able to not only get a Fire Giant, but it's feeling like they're on their last leg. Snake Hunters are going to have to look, at this point, maybe for a Titan defense. I don't know that they're going to have many Phoenixes left standing in the next 20 seconds as Kha'Zix responds.
Absolutely, I gotta agree with you there, Gore. Especially Prime, really the only giant zone ult other than Vaporish unavailable for a little bit of time. No mid Phoenix though. Elysium not quite able to crack the second bird. They're gonna back off for now. This FG is not enhanced, so it's gonna be a little bit more difficult for them to siege up these objectives. Not so much so that Snake Hunters can breathe easy, but it's gonna help them out a little bit. Primal Fury gonna get taken down by Elysium, but they're gonna reset for now.
I mean, this is just a good pickup. When you're winning, win harder is the best way to look at it. You've got a Phoenix. You almost got a second one, but you weren't quite able to lock it down. But now you've got a Primal. Primal makes it so that the Fire Giant's going to be easier. You're soon enough probably going to be able to get a Pyromancer for very, very little sacrifice in order to get it. So now it's just Elysium kind of dictating the pace of this game. This is how every set with them and Snake Hunters has gone so far, where Game 1's very close, Snake Hunters win, and then Game 2, and then ultimately Game 3 tend up being a little more lopsided, although Elysium's hit a little more snags than I think they anticipated this game. But there's definitely a lot of work to be done for Snake Hunters here. Defending under a Phoenix, Fire Giant, still 2 minutes left. This is going to be very dangerous, but still possible. It's just going to hurt to do so in the process.
A lot cleaner, absolutely, than Game 1. Trix Tank already setting up for the siege here. Prime a little too far forward, already used the 3. No incorporeal form for him. Rapio also going to take a whole chunk of damage. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, adapting should have this Phoenix for 3. Nice taunt from Rapio, isn't going to save the bird. And that's going to luckily pull 2 members of Elysium away from the left-hand side for now. Snake Hunters still need to back up and group to defend the left-hand Phoenix, but they're playing super scared. Probably, as you said, Gore, going for that Titan defense in the end. But still quite hasn't fallen yet. Blink forward from Kha'Zix is going to elicit the response from Trix Tank. Both ults are forced. Silenced in some trouble here. A lot of the Afterlife comes through, adapting, using his damage. He's going to pick up the Guardian, now breaking the base. Elysium, but one is going to go the way of Big Porridge Coast. Meanwhile, Angry with a double kill. Terran falling down low, same as Spadio, though. But no one there to punish it. It's just Prime on his own against the world. Terran is going to be the first one to fall down. Spadio is super low, but Angry and Trix are nearly full HP. It's going to be all on Pretty Prime. The blink forward from Trix is going to make him scared, but so far so good from Prime. He's going to be alive for now, but with fire minions all over the base and the damage being too strong from Spadio, Prime can't defend by himself, and Elysium fight back for a third Game 3 set between these two teams.
I mean, it took a little bit of time for them to get their feet under them, but once they had their heels in, it just felt like there was not much Snake Hunters could do there. They get pushed back, they get knocked down, and then that leads to another fight where they get knocked down. Unfortunately, it just started to spiral out of control. And again, it kind of feels like the picks and bans were where a lot of this was dictated. I think the top 5, or all 5 of what Elysium had, are just better individually, and then they played them really well as a team, even though Snake Hunters, I think, had a really good team comp. Their individual stats and individual performances couldn't match up.
For sure, it was just a rough situation for the Snake Hunters. They also didn't look nearly as tight and together as they did in that game 1. Elysium really wrapped it up, really tightened all the bolts, all the nuts that they needed to get themselves into gear. But we'll leave something for the desk to break down when we get back in a few minutes. But stay right where you are, ladies and gents, because game number 3 is coming up soon.
And just like that, Elysium bounce back after a Game 1 loss, and they tie up this very important set here, 1-1. We go on to an all-important game number 3. And this, Mifflin, is what we figured. We knew Elysium had this level of play in them. Just took a minute for it to get there.
Just took a minute for Spudio to come back into the lobby, didn't it? Spudio comes in a big way, dealing tons of damage. It was a pretty large disparity between the ADC performances in games 1 and 2, and Spudio certainly steps up to bat here. I remember initially on the desk we were saying, all right, it's a little bit more of a counter-engaged composition coming through from Elysium, but legitimately it does not come up. These guys were in control the entirety of this match. They didn't have to counter-engage. They were picking their fights wherever they wanted, and the majority of the time we're coming out pretty far ahead.
When your Jingwei is able to play like this, the airstrikes into fights and just getting as close as possible to hit all those auto attacks, you're not in a great spot if you're the Snake Hunters, and that's just what it felt like Spudio was able to do this game, and then even moments like that, able to reposition. And I think a much better performance from Trix Tank as well here in this game. The support play felt, even just from game 1 to game 2, a bit increased.
Yeah, it just felt like this time around Trix Tank was comfortable. He was consistently looking for the engages on his own. We got to see the clip right there of him finding the solo kill cleanup as well. This is a huge one, guys. This triple kill from the mid laner.
That is beefy.
Just beefy. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. I wish you didn't say it, because I was going to say it.
Yeah, that's on me. My fault for stealing that one away from you there, Mifflin. But great minds think alike, and I think both of us have some great minds here. 406 for Angry, 409 for Spudio, so a combined 8-0 and 15
Quick math.
For the carries of Elysium. Don't do math on cast unless it is single numbers added together. I can do that. You know, anything 1 through 9 plus anything 1 through 9. I got that every day of the week. The moment you add in another digit is when we start to get into questionable territory there. So now, Mifflin, we move on to a game 3. Snake Hunters have to bounce back. Remember, there is a lower bracket, so if the Snake Hunters lose here, or if Elysium loses here, they'll still have a loser's bracket run to make. But how do you bounce back after a game like that? Snake Hunters, you know, they're in it. It's not a blowout, knockdown, drag-out type performance. Is there anything in picks and bans you want to see the Snake Hunters team identify, though, or let's try to get back to game 1?
Let's go ahead and take a play from the SPL's book here and
great.
ban out that Yanis. Let's not allow that one through yet again. And
First
it's been
and
very
foremost,
clear
done.
from Elysium, they really do value this Jingwei. They not only give it to their sub, we had hypothesized maybe it's just a safe pick. It feels good if you're not really that practiced with a player. You want to get a safe god like Jingwei. Well, once Spudio was back, they immediately went back to that pick as well. Yep. Could be something to keep their eyes on.
And it makes sense here that you see the Giannis banned out. When we talked about Jingwei, and when a pick like that gets aggressive and airstrikes in and is getting aggressive with what is sometimes used as a defensive ultimate, tends to be pretty indicative of the state of the game. Kind of the same with Giannis there as well. Through space and time, every once in a while you'll see a game where Giannis is on the back foot and they're always being used defensively. Not Angry that game, and the unstable vortexes were just bursting massive amounts of damage. So it makes absolute sense the Snake Hunters take that pick away. Cullen had been banned out, I think, in game 1 and game 2 so far of this set here, Mifflin. Chiron has fallen into that category as well. Now Cullen and Chiron both seen here in game 3.
It is legitimately freaking me out, Dave, that they are just letting King Arthur come through and nobody's picking it. We're not worried about the bans at all. That god is still good. Fans at home, King Arthur, incredibly strong. If you're in my ranked lobby and it's available, please play it if you're inside of the solo lane. But neither one of these
okay,
SCC
I'm glad
teams.
You said inside.
Yeah, in solo.
I was like, all right, mid-jungle, right.
Don't mid it. Don't do any of that stuff. Let's not get crazy. But King Arthur is still an incredibly consistent pick. He just has more abilities than the majority of gods in the cast, and Bluestone means that it's going to be very good for them. Snake Hunters now making a slight adaptation. The Terra for themselves, that's interesting.
Terra, strong pick up there. Chiron and Fafnir, as well as the Soul now for Elysium. So you get 2 of the highest priority picks, 1 in the Hunter role, 1 out of the mid lane as well, and then Fafnir to back that up. And Fafnir just feels so good into these double potential auto attack type compositions. And Mifflin, that's not really what's caught my eye or your eye here. The new Wa is an interesting ban here by Elysium.
Yeah, I guess you're just worried about that global presence that is afforded. Soul has really good escape potential, so if you wait out the Disapparate, well, I mean, you're not going to miss the ultimate from New Wa, so potentially that is what they're concerned about. But this 3-man core already from Elysium is strong. I'm not going to mince words. It's incredibly strong. Neutral objectives and towers need to be put on notice. If the Snake Hunters allow any slight opportunity for Elysium to move in towards Gold Fury or Tier 1s at any point in this game, Chiron and Soul together with the backing of Fafnir and that second ability
Whoa.
are just going to shred objectives.
How about this? Speaking of shredding objectives with auto attack, Smith, when Snake Hunters in not do or die, but do or die winner bracket game go to the Kali, a chainsaw type late game carry. You're going to put that one out of the jungle. And then Zhang Kui as well. What kind of world are we living here, Myth? You're in a game 3 up against the best team out of Phase 1 of the EU SCC, and you're going Kali and Zhang Kui? The creativity is maybe a bit too far here for Snake Hunters, but do you like those final 2 picks?
I like the composition together. Each one of these individual picks does not shine in their own right, but when you have Kali, Zhang Kui, and Terra together, that screams to me we are looking for the team fight. We're hedging all our bets on fighting in the actual 5v5 itself rather than on objectives. You got death immunity from the Kali, consistent damage output from the Zhang Kui, and Terra should help you stick inside of these team fights a little bit longer with the Earthern Fury. I like what they're bringing to the engagement, but it is high execution. If this Kali dies without getting the destruction off, you're just going to lose the engagement. If this Zhang Kui doesn't get full value from his own ultimate, you're losing out on the majority of damage from this composition. Snake Hunters are playing with fire here, but that's going to be a hard composition to play against if you don't have that matchup knowledge.
Myth, this is totally off the boat, and I'm not going to get a chance to dive into how angry all of those characters look once they're locked in, because Game 3 of Snake Hunters and Elysium starts right now.
That's a lie, Dave. Actually, Jingwei looks very happy once she's locked in. It's just everybody else that's not really too jazzed to be there, but I'm pretty jazzed to be here alongside Gore once again, bringing you the 3rd and final game of this set. One way or another, Gore, we will have our tiebreaker.
It all ends here somehow, but the question is going to be how, right? And that's the fun of the journey. Snake Hunters give us something interesting to work with for this one, too. I mean, like, yeah, you know what? You look at Terra, you look at Cullen, and you look at Jingwei, and you go, you know what? That's fun. Like, that's a good top 3. That's going to be interesting. Then you get a Kali, and you're like, okay, going to be testing out some not only late game potential, but now this lack of shell is going to make things interesting for Rapio. And then you get Zhang Kui. And I've been talking a lot about Zhang Kui, way more this year than I thought I would ever talk about Zhang Kui in a single year. He's been showing up every now and then, and I want to be honest with you. Hasn't been a lot of success from the Zhang Kui, so I'm interested to see what Pretty Prime's going to be able to do with this one.
I don't get it. Honestly, I'm with you, right? Like, I've seen Paul play it in the SPL. We've seen a couple other mid laners pick it up in the SPL and in the SCC from time to time. And I'm still here. I'm pretty sure I missed the boat on this. I don't understand. Rapio not going to fall victim to that first blood just this time. Vaporish, though, in some trouble. This time swapping up the dual lane matchup for the first time this set. Jingwei versus a Chiron, and this time it's not Vaporish on the Snake.
Now, this is where things that, I think are going to be an interesting matchup. The Chiron has been one of the top picks of the last couple of weeks in the SBL. I mean, we came back from the break, and all of a sudden Chiron is showing up. Pandacat notably made him look incredibly good and won a lot of the matchups, especially against the Jingwei. So Spadio with a lot of, I want to say, potential behind it. It's all about the playstyle. That's where I think we get into it. Elysium's draft, I mean, you copy-paste that and put it into the SBL. Maybe the Wukong struggles, maybe the Nemesis struggles a little bit, but that's about it on this draft. Otherwise, I mean, like, all 5 of them, I would be very easily convinced to believe that we were watching the SBL playoffs, because that's exactly the kind of draft a lot of these teams were looking for. And that's the way Elysium like to play as well. A little more pressure on Espadio and Angry, but this is a really good composition for them. I think Mifflin had said it, but as a whole, Snake Hunters, like, when they get into a late-game team fight 25 minutes in, 5v5 looks pretty fun. Up to that point, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially when you're looking at Rapio here, one of the latest late-game gods. Maybe discount, like, maybe take out Kronos from that list, and who else? Like, literally, I don't think there's anyone else. Maybe a Mercury at a stretch, but Kali is probably the latest god. Take those 2. So Rapio's gonna either need to find an early kill onto his target or onto just anyone to really kind of propel his build up into the late, or it's gonna be a late game for Snake Hunters.
I mean, late game, maybe the exact words you want to hear if you're Rapio. I'm curious about the build he's going to go to, because like a lot of the items that I think of from last year specifically with Kali have changed. So I'm just curious to see how he is going to build this one up. Auto attack heavy, really, really great god for those late game engagements. Man, is it going to take a little while before we get to really see anything out of that side of the jungle. That being said, Nemesis, on the other hand, going into a Zhang Kui, that's like your dream. I mean, that is the best thing, best case scenario for you. So I think that's going to be a place for Adapting to really get to show off what he has capable. Alongside Angry, I mean, they're going to be able to just combo down the Zhang Kui, maybe more than Pretty Prime would like.
Yeah, he's kind of a sitting target, really, especially when he uses that ultimate. He's, well, he might have a little bit of sustain to him. It depends how tanky Prime wants to go for here. He hasn't gone into the Vamp Shroud, which, I mean, as someone who missed the Zhang Kui boat completely, Gore, I would have thought Vamp Shroud would be something that you would really value on a god that's supposed to be really tanky.
This is one of those moments where if, like, this was, like, edited instead of live, I'd say let's just copy paste Hindu's like whole talk about why Vamp Shroud is such a great item and why he loves it, things like that. But we don't really have that capability. Maybe we do. I don't know. It's one of those things that right now it's not going to be happening. But just let it be known that it is a good item for you. Good sustain. And when it comes to Zhang Kui, that's exactly what you need, right? Like you get these Lifesteal boots. So I'm curious to see how this will affect him not having the Vamp Shroud early on, but it's good survivability. Look, there's going to be no short amount of survivability that Pretty Prime's going to need. I mean, he's going to need every ounce he can find in this game. That's going to be something, and maybe that's something to look at. Like, I mean, this is a really, really, like, not even related to the game. He's not even able to go into this, but I'm starting to think, like, you're going up against a Nemesis. Maybe you go for, like, an alternate timeline, even late game, so that you can die from the easy counter matchup, but still come back in. I don't know. There's a lot of different avenues that you could potentially take. But none of those are the ones that he did take.
It's super bold of you to assume that if he got timeline, he would be allowed to respawn.
To have a second life.
You're stuck there for like, what is it, 2 seconds, a second and a half, reviving yourself. It's super easy for pretty much anyone on Elysium to just, I mean, even Terrorim could kill you at that point, you know, just drop the Jingu Bang on your face and you're dead. So, maybe not, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't seem like I don't think that's going to work that well. Now, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe you just don't do that one. Honestly, I think, you know what? We've gotten to the root of the issue, which is you picked Zhang Kui. And I can think, you know, the Captain America meme, he pulls the chair around and is like, so you got detention. It's like, so you picked Zhang Kui. There you go, Auburn. Use that one on Twitter.
Yeah, I don't know. It's curious to me. Like, there are so many other options available to Prime. I mean, listen, Snake Hunters, they're a capable team. They know what they're doing. There's probably their coach sitting in their ear going, hey, this is the pick, all right? We're going to do this. We're going to catch them off guard with this super off draft with Rapio and with the Kali and with the Zhang Kui, and it's going to work. And you know what? If Snake Hunters tell me they have a plan, I'm here for it. I'm here for the ride. It's just... and it's like a heist movie, Gore. Like, it's not until the end of the game where you see the plan come together where you really understand there was a plan at all.
I will admit, first and foremost, I would love to see Zhang Kui find some success. I really want... I think just having more mages available that can be meta, and, like, in a world where... maybe he wouldn't necessarily hit meta, but like there's a flex pick that works. That's where I think it can really be successful, and that's where I think it would be really fun to have him enter that conversation. The downside is that I've said that exact phrase like 6 times, 7 times over like 3 weeks, it feels like, and he hasn't yet.
Well, Rapio looking to chase out Adapting, but a blink through is going to turn the tables. Rapio in some trouble here, but meanwhile, in the mid lane, Prime's going to take the first spill of the match. Adapting, able to limp away with about half HP. He's going to be just fine. I think the ult from Silence actually saves the life for Rapio there. The 4th hit from Adapting gave him a whole bunch of HP back. So that'll be just fine. But already, Gore, 1 death down is Prime, and 2 whole levels.
Not only 2 whole levels, but that death kind of showcases exactly what we're really worried about. Like, first off, that's the longest it's taken to get to first blood in this set so far. It's taken them 2 minutes every other game. Most of the time we enter 8 minutes at 1-1, but it was always a couple of kills that went, so it took a little while for them to get online. But Elysium showcase exactly what my fear is, not just for Zhonghui, but kind of for Silenced, maybe even for Kha'Zix a little bit later, although I think both Silenced and Kha'Zix have more survivability that they're going to be able to bring to the table. Pretty Prime is just the easy target. He's easy to pick on. He's easy to tear down if Adapting has his ult. And that makes it a very easy fight for Elysium to take if they know that they can get rid of the mage almost instantly.
Okay, but Gore, right. Scrap what we were talking about, all right? I'm going to bring you back to game 2. After Snake Hunters got the exact same first blood kill that Elysium did in game 1, and you said, statistically speaking, Snake Hunters lose this because the only game that's been played this week, First Blood lost. Now, Elysium pick up First Blood after Snake Hunters lose game 2 after picking up First Blood. So, the math dictates, Score, that Snake Hunters win this game. I mean, it's in the math.
Yeah, honestly, it checks out. Like, 100% of First Bloods have lost, therefore Elysium lose. Done and dusted. All right, let's end the game. We're done. We can all get up, go home.
Too.
Losers bracket for Elysium, the story of the century. It is definitely going to be interesting. I think that's an interesting way to look at it, though, because this early lead, well, actually, I put pause on that. The early
3K.
leads from the First Blood so far have been, hey, we're 800 to 1,000 ahead. That's 3,000 gold. Where did Elysium get all of this?
I don't know. Maybe they raided Scrooge McDuck, but they forest having to ult on out of the left-hand side. Adapting makes a rotation there, but that I had not even noticed that. I'm in the same boat as you, Go. Where did that come from? Prime stunned it upon in the mid lane, although the turnaround could be good. The rest of this team is here. Angry nearly takes a spill, but not quite having the follow-up just yet. Meanwhile, Rapio is potentially going to pay for his life. The dot is ticking from Trix. Terran looking for the Jingu. Bang! There it is. Up and down. Prime in the back line is going to pay for his life as well. Adapting should be out here for free, and that is 2 more kills in favor of Elysium and another 2-ish hundred, 3-ish hundred, 6-ish hundred gold.
I mean, a lot filling and lining their pockets now. Guess what? Pyromancer going on top of that. You get a couple of kills. I'm starting to think that First Blood thing might get maybe fought back on this time around. At least Elysium are going to do their best to make sure that they can keep this going their way. In fact, honestly, at this rate, and I'm not saying this is going to end up happening, but if they can keep this pace up, they'll end up having a perfect game without anybody dying. That's going to be the hard part, trying to get to something like that. They have notably, again, track record versus Snake Hunters. Game 1's very close, they end up losing. Game 2, it's still close, but a little more in favor of Elysium throughout a lot of it. Game 3 typically is when the stomp starts to come through, when Elysium kind of remember who they are, remember to play Smite. They get the Mufasa moment of remember who you are, and they finally click together to become this dominant team that we expect to see in Europe. So maybe that's going to end up happening here. Again, it's not do or die for Snake Hunters, but it is definitely a lot of weight to end up knocked down first thing into the losers bracket. If you could displace Elysium down there, I mean, that's such a huge win for you. So I think even more pressure on them to try and turn this one around.
Yeah, for sure. It's not quite do or die, as you said. If they do fall down in this game, they are able to move themselves back up through the losers bracket. But exactly as you said, giving themselves that winners bracket advantage, putting Elysium down into that position. I mean, think about it this way, as Vaporish Coast is once again forced out, and actually Hold on Silenced is, well, dead? No, maybe not. The hockey pucks of death are going to come through. Adapting's going to pick it up with a dash, but I've lost my train of thought. Here's a Gold Fury.
And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pick up right where you left off, which is mainly hockey pucks of death. You said that.
Yep.
A small random anecdote. My wife is Canadian, right? Or at least her mom was born in Canada, so she's got the dual citizenship. Did not realize that there was a Canadian skin for Chiron until, like, last year or something like that.
Right.
It's been out for a while. Unfortunately for Coast, he's feeling the brunt of it. Adapting, like, this is just clean play from Elysium right now, and that's why it's a little easy to go on silly tangents like that. They are dominating this game. I mean, to the extent that Game 1 feels like so long ago. It feels like different teams maybe that even showed up. This is so well played and placed from Elysium here. Good Fury pickup, good kill after the fact, enough that they dive a Tier 1 tower, something that neither of these teams have really been doing for the entirety of the set so far. They feel this lead so much so that their confidence is really starting to play through. And adapting, I mean, he's 3-0. This is a very dangerous, slippery slope for Snake Hunters.
For sure, and hey, going back to exactly what you just said, Gore, this is a different team playing right now. Elysium dropped Game 1 with the sub. That's their out.
True,
We didn't,
yeah, you're right.
Elysium, we didn't lose Game 1. No, that was
was
all
all Ulka.
on Ulka. It was all Ulka's fault. That's the only reason we lost that game, guys. That's what they're saying, and that's what's coming into this third game here, Gore. It is technically, if you want to look at it from that lens, a different team.
It's Game 3, no Johns. This time they're going right back at it. It's 5-0. Look, there's so much to recap and so little time to do so. No, it's 6,000 gold in their favor. It's items that are stacking up in their favor. The Aussie just finished for Spudio. Now 7,000 gold as they push it even further. This is where things start to become a much bigger difference. Not just the level lead. One level in the jungle and in solo, but you have 3 levels in the mid and carry role. Like, Angry and Spudio are going to have the time of their lives right now. They have both of their relics online. They're each about an item and a half up over what their opponent's been able to pick up. And they're going to be able to bring that into every fight they're a part of. If the two of them get together for tower sieges or objective shred, I mean, forget about it. It's going to be absolutely melted. Snake Hunters need a good plan to get Rapio online quickly and in the backline to slow this down.
Kha'Zix in some trouble on the right-hand side here. The judgment from adapting has come through, but the transformation will be fine to save his life. Kha'Zix has so much health and defense at the moment that even the ultimate from adapting, it didn't make Kha'Zix look squishy. If anything, it made him somehow look tankier because he didn't take any damage after the ultimate. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, however, a lot of damage coming through. Once again, Pretty Prime taking a spill here. Silence in some danger. Rapio on the left-hand side. I don't think he's coming to help Silenced. He's just looking to get a little bit more farm. Slink back off into the jungle. And I think that's kind of what we want to see from Rapio. Meanwhile, Silenced going to take another trip to the base.
It's just the fast way back, right? Now, this is where the conversation gets to take an interesting turn. First off, obligatory coerce is going to be really good. You've got 2 hunters or 2 tank or tower killers, I'll call them, and a coerce. They're going for a 16-minute Phoenix.
No way.
I think they can get it.
They just can't stop this. What do they do to stop this? Kha'Zix is here. He pops the thorns. He blinks in, but it's not going to matter. They already ran away with it. Transformation's going to be good, but who does he go for? Nobody here is low enough. Rapio finally joins in the fight, and maybe looking for adapting. This could be one for the Kali. That's a big kill. Angry could potentially be the next one. Kha'Zix still charging forward here. Prime is on his way, but movement speed is lacking amongst these 3 characters. Rapio really the only one who can catch up. 1 kill goes the way of Snake Hunters, but honestly, take adapting. We got a Phoenix.
Yeah, that's an interesting balancing point. They might be able to even get a Pyromancer off of it. And honestly, maybe worthwhile, although Angry, a lot of people are still hanging around over here. But this is where things get interesting. Like you said, adapting for Phoenix, I would argue even for Pyromancer. At 16 minutes, hell yeah, I'm taking that. Are you kidding me? That's so worthwhile. Those fire minions are so helpful in this, and an Oni Fury is going to be coming up soon. You might be able to power those up. I mean, that is an absurd power swing for Elysium here early on. And now you're also in this conversation where Rapio is right on the cusp of becoming super relevant, right? And that's not to say, well, let's face it, he's 1-1. He's not necessarily been irrelevant, but he hasn't been a part of this because Kali can't early on. This is one of those moments.
He has 100% kill participation.
Yeah, he does. You're right about that. The Chin size online, looking for what I'm going to guess might be an Odysseus's bow. Yeah, he's gone for the charged bow. This is a really good spot for the Kali to start turning things around. All it's going to take is one Kali in the backline on her target, one health reset, and one destruction, and all of a sudden you are in a great spot to turn this around. Snake Hunters, it's a massive lead to overcome. Rapio's the key into it.
I'm just really worried about what you were saying earlier about the Oni minion waves. Just think about poor Pretty Prime trying to deal with an Oni fire wave at level 15. Like, that's my mid laner has DC'd and come back levels of behind, right?
Yeah, it is very frightening levels, to the point where most people, look, you're in a casual game, you've S6'd us already. 10 minutes in, you're like, nope, we're done. 16 minutes to get your Phoenix, you're out. When you haven't even taken a tower yet, they're still all tier 1s. Even though that one on right barely exists for Elysium, all 6 are still technically standing. It's definitely a difficult comeback, but that's the strength of Kali. And I have to give a lot of credit to it, because look at the damage. I mean, admittedly, a lot more being turned back onto you by Terrorum than what you were able to accomplish. But I think that's what Rapio is going to be able to bring to this fight.
But Fire Giant has already gone down, Gore. It's 19 minutes in. FG already around the waist of all 5 Elysium members. Already falling low as Kha'Zix. Rapio still in this fight, but Prime finally able to find a kill here. Health bars are looking low. Terrim makes up into the sky, but Adapting coming in for the trade. Definitely worth it for Snake Hunters so far. Rapio looking to find one. Trick Snake should fall down here to the Kali. That's going to be another kill, but he's probably going to fall. Actually, jumps onto Terrim, nearly claims a kill, but unfortunately the bull form from Terrim is going to be that. You know what, Gore? Worth it. Worth it every day of the week. Give Pretty Prime a kill. Give Rapio a kill. 2 Fire Giants off the table.
And yeah, it's the 2 Fire Giants off the table, and the fact that if you lose that fight, let's, again, I don't think there is a way to mince words here. If you lose the fight, any fight here, you lose the game. You have a Phoenix exposed. You have fire minions outside your base. You are struggling if you are Snake Hunters. If you don't kill 3 people there, then the Elysium crew just gets to run right on into this. Now they still look like they're going to be able to get 1 Phoenix, probably bounce over to mid and get a second one. But you are not out of it yet. And I put the pressure back onto this Kali. Pretty Prime is going to be struggling. He's 1-4, but Kali, Oboe online. I know where I'm putting all my hopes if I'm a Snake Hunters fan. And it is inside the jungler. It is inside the ability to close the gap. You just have to hope on the respawn he chose a much easier to kill target. Or, with his items, when he gets a little more farm online, he's going to pick up a couple more that are going to help really close the gap of health bars that's going to come between him and Trickstank and him and Terror.
What goes in this last item slot for Rapio here? Like, what could you possibly pick up?
I mean, there's so many options. That's the thing that I was curious about, right? Like, we've seen a lot of these AA hunters going for crit, but I'm starting to think that maybe he wants prots, if anything. Maybe a mantle, if I'm going to be going for something. Like, looking at how these last few fights have been going. Chin size is there. You've got the hastened. You've got the oboe. Attack speed is not the problem. Health shred might be a little bit of the problem. Maybe a little bit of power. I wouldn't mind some protection either. I do not know what you do if you're in scenarios like that where you're just going to get melted down. He's starting up a katana. I think there's a ton of options here, but how much can he do? Yeah, stone cutting sword would be great, but how much can you do if you get melted before you can use it?
Absolutely. Blinking forward is Silence, trying to make something happen. Angry is being forced out, but Pretty Prime equally forced out. There's the ultimate from Terrim and also adapting. Bye-bye mid laner, bye-bye Vaporish, bye-bye Kha'Zix. I mean, Gore, if there's one player to put your hope in, it is Rapio right here, right now. 2 players are low, but none of them are the carry.
Territory, baby.
Spudio is the only carry who is low here. Rapio got to move forward, but
Have you ever had so much damage dealt to you in your fountain that you had to use your Kali ult to not die in the fountain? I don't know that I've seen that happen, at least not often. Look, I think they put a lot of hope in those bottom 2 picks. I'm not going to say the hope was misplaced, but Kali takes a long time to get online, and we didn't get to see that come true. And look, I'm just going to say, I have not seen Zhang Kui win a game all year, and he's been played a lot more this year than he did last year, so it's not like I'm saying he's lost 1 game. He's lost like 7 now, or 8. It is not necessarily working. Plus, they leave it right into the Nemesis counter. I don't know, that one just feels like it was going to be difficult from the get-go for Snake Hunters, and then Elysium made sure it was difficult throughout the entire game.
Gore, I'm sad. I'm sad. I mean, Snake Hunters still have a chance to come back and break their chain against Elysium, right? But to do that, they have to fight all the way through the losers bracket and beat Elysium with a game down from the start.
Oof.
It's gonna be a rough one, but before we get to the finals, I'm wishing the entire weekend away here. God, before we get to the finals, we have so many more games to come, ladies and gents. Set 2 of the playoffs will be coming up shortly, but first, back to the desk after this break.
And that is the Elysium we knew and loved from Phase 1 of the SCC. They showed up here big in game number 3 to take down the Snake Hunters in just over 20 minutes. Mifflin, this one is just convincing. Cut and dry, full stop. This is the Elysium team that we expected to show up in game 1. Took a minute to get there in game number 2 and ultimately win their first set of the Phase 1 playoffs here.
It was a clear identification of strategy. Elysium said, "Oh, you guys are looking for the late game team fight? Be an awful shame if we ended the game before you even got a singular chance to put that to the test." And that's exactly what they do this time around. I was thinking maybe there was potential that it would go late, adapting playing a slightly late game focused god himself inside the Nemesis, not nearly as late game focused as Kali herself, but I mean, this was an expedited pace, clean, clinical game, and really at no point did I feel like the Snake Hunters were able to fight in.
Yeah, some smart plays from adapting this game to find early pressure, again, as you point out, on a pick that might take some time to really get involved, get invested. I'm so intrigued, Mifflin. Are we actually in a world where Zhang Kui is an answer to a problem? Is there ever a draft where you're like, we want Zhang Kui and he is the answer? Because I feel like we've seen it at the SPL level with near zero success. Now we see Snake Hunters go to it in a pivotal Game 3 with little to no success. Is there some actual experiment going on here, or is it time to retire this pick?
Look, I'm a huge fan, Dave, personally, of results-based analysis, and Zhang Kui has not gotten the results a single time. All empirical data that we have in the SPL and the SCC has pointed towards Zhang Kui just doesn't work.
Yep.
But for some reason, it keeps getting locked in. Sure, he's got great damage output. He's got great survivability. He can sit inside a lane forever.
Beefy 7K.
Legitimately, yeah, beefy 7K off of his own ultimate. But man, this god is so easy to shut down. It just surprised me how willing these teams are at all levels of play to play him.
Yeah, and look, this is a game that felt like it was just spiraling out of control, adapting, just pulling the red wagon along, and the rest of the Snake Hunters jumping on into the back seat there and taking on to a game or a set 1 victory here. And we'll see now how Elysium progress on through the bracket into the second round of the Phase 1 playoffs here. They'll face the winner of Pandemonium versus Accounting Department. Of course, then you can see losers round 1. Snake Hunters will be facing the loser of the next matchup that we have coming up next year. So Mifflin, Pandemonium versus Accounting Department, this is one that I think carries a lot of weight to it, because these are the two teams that, while it's been tough to dethrone this Elysium team, Pandemonium versus Accounting Department and those two teams as individuals are the two teams that have given Elysium a bit of a run for their money throughout the phase.
They have tons of huge name talent that we'll have a chance to go through once we get there in this next set, but I really do expect that these two teams are really keeping their eyes throughout these entire weekend. Even if one of them falls down to the loser bracket, as it is a double elimination bracket, they're going to have a pretty decent run, I think, to match back up inside the finals. I'm really excited for this set. This one I fully expect to go 3, and I fully expect to be potentially 3 hours long.
It could be a long set. Look, we already got a 3-game set to start off the Phase 1 playoffs here in the SCC. We're going to take a quick break, and then, hey, Mifflin and I, we're not going anywhere. We'll be right back to set up Pandemonium versus Accounting Department, so stick around.